Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mar, and today I thought we will be talking about the Jenny Han book series that literally nobody talks about. Absolutely made no noise, did not chart on the Billboard Hot 100. Like, I swear nobody has heard of this book series. That is the Burn for Burn series. As a society, we do not talk about this book enough, and considering that everyone has been eating up Jenny Han's content, I don't know. It's like, it's just suspicious to me. Sit back and relax, get some popcorn, get some food, because we will be sitting here for the next couple hours talking about this book series. Let's get started with this video. I feel like if you are a female between the ages of 14 to 35, or you know a female that is between the ages of 14 to 35, you would at least know who Jenny Han is or have at least heard her name. But if you don't know, I will tell you who she is. Miss Jenny Han is a Korean American author who is best known for writing the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy and the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy. Both of these trilogies have been adapted into live action TV shows or movies. The To All the Boys series has been turned into films by Netflix, and because they became so popular after being released on the platform that Netflix decided to give it a spin-off series. So now it has a spin-off show called Exo Kitty, and it's pretty much about the sister of the main girl from the To All the Boys I Love series and her adventures in Korea and learning about their Korean heritage. And by the time I'm filming this video, it has been renewed for a second season, which is very exciting. And fun fact, I did run into the cast when I went to LA last summer. So that was interesting. It was when they were promoting Exo Kitty, so now I'm obligated to say good things about that show. The Summer I Turned Pretty series was adapted into a television show by Amazon Prime, and that has pretty much blown up everywhere on social media. Like, you really can't go anywhere without seeing that show. By the time I'm filming this as well, it has been renewed for a third season, so they're getting onto the third book of the series now. I'm not here to talk about those adaptations, but I just wanted to give you context for who Jenny Han is. Today, I'm here to talk about the book series that does not have a live adaptation yet. Who knows? Maybe it will get a live adaptation if this video blows up somehow. I doubt it. To the 3 people watching this video, hello and thank you for being here. Let me just give you some context as to what went on behind the scenes for the series. But the Burn for Burn series is the second young adult series that Jenny Han has written, and it was written after the Summer I Turned Pretty series. So this one was published in 2012, and series is co-written by the authors Jenny Han and Siobhan Vivian. Siobhan Vivian is an American author, but I don't think her books have reached the same level of popularity as Jenny Han's. The only one I can personally recall is The List, and I vaguely remember this book because I think I saw it in my middle school library or something. It was co-written by these 2 authors, so usually when you read co-written books, sometimes it can be jarring because 2 authors will have different writing styles and all that. They did have an interview about this book series as well, and it says that they said that Jenny Han, she really likes developing characters and all that. Meanwhile, Siobhan Vivian more so likes developing plots, so that's why they work well together. It was co-written by these 2, and I guess that these guys are still friends to this day because Siobhan Vivian is listed as a supervising producer for the Summer I Turned Pretty series, and she's a consulting producer for Exo Kitty, also written 2 episodes. So good for them. I love that they are still friends with each other. Now let me tell you about the premise of the series. So the Burn for Burn series is pretty much about a group of girls who plan to do each other's revenge. If you guys remember the Netflix movie Do Revenge with Maya Hawke and Camila Mendes, I believe it came out 2 years ago. It is a very similar premise to that. I really don't know why Netflix didn't choose to continue milking Jenny Han's content, but whatever. Maybe Amazon Prime can take the rights for this series. The premise of the book that is written on the back of the novel, because it is less work for me to read, here it is. Postcard perfect Jar Island is home to charming tourist shops, pristine beaches, amazing oceanfront homes, and three girls secretly plotting revenge. Kat is sick and tired of being bullied by her former best friend. Lilia has always looked out for her little sister, so when she discovers that one of her guy friends has been secretly hooking up with her, she's going to put a stop to it. Mary is perpetually haunted by a traumatic event from years past, and the boy who's responsible has yet to get what's coming to him. None of the girls can act on their revenge fantasies alone without being suspected, but together, anything is possible. With an alliance in place, there will be no more "I wish I'd said" or "if I could go back and do things differently." These girls will show Jar Island that revenge is a dish best enjoyed together. So that is the premise. That is what the book's about. And as a 16-year-old, 15, 16-year-old who read this book, I ate this shit up. How would I describe this book series? Imagine the characters from To All the Boys I've Loved Before, put them on an island, and then give it the angst of The Summer I Turned Pretty. Overall, a good time. Before I go on and start explaining what happens in this book series, I need to address some things. So, number one, if you haven't watched any media of Jenny Han's, let me just give you a quick rundown of what to expect. Jenny Han usually writes young adult romance books, and that means most of her content and books are character based and not plot based. So most of the time, her books are about high schoolers doing high schooler things, but with some type of trope. So the love triangle, fake dating, revenge plot, or if it's EXO Kitty, it's all of the above. That's what you can expect from any Jenny Han content. And then the final thing I want to address. Yes, this video is inspired by all of the YouTubers that are making long form content right now. I feel like we're all kind of sort of in our own niches, so it's okay, but let me just shout out the people that I have been, inspired by to create these videos, cuz there's going to be a lot more coming your way. The first one, Mike's Mike. Love him. He creates more pop culture specific videos, so media like shows, movies, music that have influenced pop culture. Um, the next person I have on this list is Carrie Can Read. She has the whole ACOTAR, Crescent City, Mortal Instruments, Space. So you're not going to get any videos of those from me. But the next person we have is Uncarly. She has Riverdale. I'm not going anywhere near there. Next is Lexi, aka Newly Nova. I believe that's the username. They do popular TikTok book or popular book talk books. So in that case, we might overlap because yes, I will be doing a Fourth Wing video, and I cannot wait for that. Next person we have Jenny Nicholson, has whatever pops into that beautiful but scary brain of theirs. And then Nicole Rafi, all of the chronically online internet lore that I'm always sad for. And there are probably other creators on this app that I've missed. I think this is just the new type of content that we will be creating. So, yeah. Now that all of those things are out of the way, let's get started with this recap for the Burn for Burn series. Let's sit back, relax. For this video, I'm just going to be talking about the first book because she is hefty. We have a lot of stuff to cover, but then the next video will be the second and third book. So yeah, let's get started. I had to readjust my sitting arrangement because we will be sat here for a very long time. Burn for Burn. Book one. Okay. So this novel series is contemporary young adult fiction. What you need to know about this book. This book takes place on this fictional island called Jar Island, and it is supposed to be off the coast of Massachusetts. I am not American. I am Canadian, and so I had to search up where like Massachusetts was, Boston was. So like pretend in this somewhere in this body of water, um there is an island called Jar Island. And pretty much in the book, the island is described as this like touristy island in the summertime. Many rich people who live like in the mainland come over to this island to just like spend time during the summer to relax in their lake houses or their ocean view houses or whatever. And the only way to get onto this island is either by ferry or by private jet. This book takes place on the island year round, and it's about the characters that live on the island year round. Let me introduce you to the characters in this novel. As we go on with like the plot and all that, I'll be revealing more characters when they get introduced. But right now, here are the main three you need to remember. And also, since this is a book series, there aren't any pieces of media like that I could easily just put a picture of. So I'm still trying to figure out which faces would correspond to which characters. So if there are some questionable ones on the screen when I'm editing this, just know I'm using it for their faces, not by the person themselves or their personality. So the first character we have is Lilia. And I would consider Lilia to be the main character. Like out of the three girls, she is the one that is usually the central point of like the series because a lot of things come back to her and she's connected to a lot of people. So she is a described as Korean, and she is one of the most popular girls in school because she's on the cheerleading team and she is best friends with the head cheerleader. And personality wise, she's described as like sometimes being very spoiled because she's very rich, but she's definitely a lot nicer than a lot of the other characters that you'll be introduced. And pretty much the main motivation in this book is that she wants to be just a role model for her younger sister. I would describe Lilia as Lara Jean, but if Lara Jean was cool. So that's all you need to know about Lilia. The next character we have is Kat. Kat DeBrasio, I would describe as like the next main character. She is also connected to a lot of the characters as well, and she is pretty much described as being the bad girl out of the main three girls. She's like very rebellious and she has like this I don't give a shit type of attitude. Um she does like drugs and all that, and she is kind of a loner and like doesn't have many friends, but there's a reason to this that we'll get into. But yeah, like that is most of the stuff you need to know about Kat. And finally, we have our last girl who is Mary. So Mary is the new girl in town, and she's also kind of a loner because she doesn't have any friends or anything like that. She's described to be blonde, shy, a bit mousy, I guess, and like I don't know, like out of the main three, she's a character that like when she's first introduced, you don't know too much about her past, about her history. And yeah, pretty much all you really need to know is that she grew up on Jar Island, but she had to take the ferry to the mainland every day because that's where she went to school. Until I believe her parents decided to move there permanently, but now she is back on Jar Island for high school. So those are the main three girlies you need to know about, and yeah, we will be introduced to more characters as the plot goes on. I should probably mention as well that this book deals with a lot of different types of content and possible triggers. So I will list them on the screen right here, and please go research any possible content warnings or trigger warnings that might be in this book. If I say something that you do not vibe with about this book, then feel free to leave this video or skip ahead or, you know, do anything else. Yeah, that is my warning to you. The book starts with a prologue, and this prologue first starts with the point of view of Mary. Mary's on the ferry and she is coming from the mainland to Jar Island. She is looking at her reflection in the window in front of her, and she says, "A hint of my reflection in the window stares back at me. Pale eyes, lips parted, wind-blown blonde hair. I'm not the same person I was when I left here in 7th grade. I'm older, obviously, but it's not just that. I've changed. When I see myself now, I see someone strong, maybe even pretty." The reason why she's saying this is because she wonders if he will recognize her. It is literally the second page of the novel, and she is already thinking of a man. Unbelievable. She doesn't tell us who this guy is. The only thing we know about him is that his initials are RT and they are carved underneath the seat that Mary is sitting next to. So Mary then goes on to explain some lore about her family. She starts to explain that the Zanes have practically lived on Jar Island since forever, and it's been so long that their family plot is literally in the center of the cemetery on the island. I don't know why she chose to brag about that, but okay, go off, girl. She then explains that Jar Island actually consists of 4 towns. So there's Thomastown, Middlebury, Whitehaven, and Kenobi Bluffs. And each of these towns have their own middle schools, but they all feed into Jar Island High School. And then she mentions that usually during the summer there are like thousands of vacationers, but year round there are only about 1,000 people who live there. Mary then says, in the book, "My mom says Jar Island never changes. It's its own little universe. There's something about Jar Island that lets people pretend the world has stopped spinning. I think that's part of the charm, why people want to spend summers here, or why the diehards put up with the hassles that come with living here year round, the way my family used to." And so, like, this is the extent of the world building in this book that we're gonna get. So we've knocked that out. We got that out of the way. Now Mary has is getting off the ferry and she starts to walk home to the house that her mother grew up in. So she is going to live with her Aunt Bet on the island. And Mary doesn't really explain where her parents are, so we can assume that they are on the mainland. And she just pretty much says that like her parents both like baby her, like they give her a curfew even though she's 17 years old still. So she's walking home and then Mary's like, "I'm getting tired. Like, hey, like maybe I should try hitchhiking because like people are usually pretty hospitable here." So like she puts her thumb out to hitchhike, but cars are passing by her. No one is like stopping to pick her up. So she's like, "Okay, I guess I have to walk all the way home. I guess I can try this hitchhiking thing another day." So she finally arrives at the house, which is described to be a 3-story colonial covered in gray cedar shingles, white shutters bolted to each of the windows, with a cobblestone wall edging the yard. And her Aunt Bet's tan Volvo is parked in the driveway, and it's covered in a blanket of tiny purple flowers. So Mary admires the lilac flowers, and she thinks to herself, "It's good to be home." So now we have moved to Lilia's perspective. We are still at the prologue, and Lilia says that it is the end of August and there's only one more week until their school starts. So I guess on Jar Island, school starts in September. Usually in the US, school starts in August, but whatever, I guess this is different. So Lilia is at the beach with her friends. She's lying on a beach blanket with Rennie, who is her best friend, and she is head cheerleader at their school. And she's also lying there with Alex, who is her best guy friend, and she's pretty much known him since like childhood. Also with them are the characters Reeve. Reeve is the captain of the football team and is the person that Rennie has eyes for. And then there's also PJ. PJ is another football player who, in this book, really does not do anything. He's kind of just always mentioned. So that's why he's on the board. Reeve and PJ are playing frisbee on the beach. And then there is also Ashlyn and Derek. So Ashlyn is another cheerleader. Ashlyn, she has more of a role in the next two books, and Derek is, I don't even know if Derek's a football player. Like, he also kind of just shows up. Neither Ashlyn or Derek are important in this book. This is Lilia's core friend group, and they are about to be seniors in high school. Lilia, Rennie, and Alex are sitting on a beach blanket. Alex is applying sunscreen, and Lilia is like, let me get your shoulders, and Rennie is looking through a magazine. Remember magazines, guys? Lilia and Alex start to make small talk, and then he suddenly asks her, what type of perfume do you wear? And Lilia goes like, it's a secret. In her internal monologue, she says, it's so important for a girl to have a signature scent. A scent everyone knows you by, so when you walk down the hallway at school, people turn and look, like a Pavlovian response or something. Every time they smell that perfume, they'll think of you. Burnt sugar and bluebell. That's the Lilia scent. Lilia asks Lindy. Yes, she calls Alex Lindy because his last name is Lynn to pass her Coke that is in the cooler. However, it turns out Reeve took her Coca-Cola and started to drink it. Scandalous, how dare he? Alex then offers to get Lilia a new drink, and they both low-key just start flirting with each other. And after he leaves, Rennie looks over to Lilia, smirking, and she's like, that boy would do anything for you. Lilia then reveals to us Rennie has gotten it into her head that Alex and I should become a couple, and then she and Reeve can become a couple, and we can go on double dates and weekend trips together. As if my parents would ever let me go with guys. Rennie can go ahead and get an STD from Reeve as she wants. But Alex and I are not happening. I don't see him that way, and he doesn't see me that way. We're friends. That's it. Yeah, Lilia pretty much shuts down the conversation. She's like, I am not interested in Alex. The girls start to talk about their plans for homecoming instead when these two college guys walk up to them and start to flirt with the girls because Rennie tells them that both of them are 18, where Rennie is, but Lilia is actually only 17. And these guys are 21. And pretty much one of the guys starts flirting with Lilia, and his name is Mike, by the way. And they pretty much continue to flirt with the girls, and they're just like, you guys should come over to the house we're renting up in Kenobi Bluffs. And pretty much like, while this is happening, Alex and Reeve come back with drinks for the girls, and they just watch them from afar. Now we are in Kat's point of view for the prologue, and Kat is on her way to this coffee shop called Java Jones, and she's going to this coffee shop because she needs coffee because she's planning to head over to the mainland to go to a concert, and she's like, I need caffeine to stay awake for this. Kat walks into this coffee shop, and she ends up seeing Alex sitting in the corner at one of the tables in the back, and he's hunched over this small notebook and he's scribbling something in it. And Kat says that over the summer, like, she saw him doing this a lot, and pretty much she reveals that her and Alex had been hanging out over the summer for a few weeks, but she was like just because we're hanging out like doesn't mean we're actually like friends who like tell secrets to each other. We met at the yacht club in June. I knew who Alex was before then, obviously. It's not like our high school is huge. We never actually talked to each other. Maybe once or twice in art last year. We roll with very different crews. Kat and Alex became close over the summer. They've sort of been in this situationship where it's like they've been hanging out a lot, going to concerts with each other, but not much has happened other than that. And so Kat goes up to Alex and she's like, "Hey, like, do you want to come to the concert tonight?" And he's like, "I can't. I have to go on this deep sea like fishing trip with like the boys tomorrow morning." But he's like, "I'll give you a ride, Kat." Alex drives Kat. As they pull into the ferry parking lot, Kat decides she's like, "You know what? I'm going to bail on this concert because I want to spend this last night hanging out with Alex because it's really the only time that Alex and Kat can hang out with each other before like school starts." So Alex takes Kat to his uncle's yacht, which is the size of a mansion, apparently. Kat and Alex start to make out, and Kat says, I freeze. Alex's lips brush against my neck. He grabs my hips and pulls me toward him. He's not my type, not even close. That's why it's so crazy. Because as soon as I turn my head, we're kissing. And I suddenly feel like I've been waiting the whole summer for it to happen. It is now 1 week later, and we are now in Lilia's point of view, and she tells us that it is the first day of school, and she is in her bathroom doing her makeup, her hair, which she brushes 25 strokes every day. I also forgot to mention that in Jenny Han books, she really tells you every little detail about these characters. Lilia is getting ready. Her little sister, Nadia, then bangs on the door and says, I need to take a shower before school. And she opens the door and says to Lilia, I thought you weren't supposed to wear white after Labor Day. Regarding Lilia's white cashmere sweater. This is important for later. Um, and Lilia's like, fine. And she leaves and tells Nadia to hurry up as Rennie is picking both of them up for school. Lilia packs her bag and then she has this heart to heart talk with her mom about school. And Lilia also mentions to us that her dad is a doctor and he does research on the mainland for months at a time. So that's why he isn't living with them on the island. And her mother says to her, You have to look out for Naughty now that you're at the same school. You know how she looks up to you, Lily. And then Lilia thinks, My mom squeezes my arm, and I swallow hard. I do have to look out for Nadia better. Not like how I did on Saturday night, when I left her at Alex's party. She was with her friends, but still. Rennie then arrives at the house, and Lilia and Nadia hop into her car, and this is the way, like, their house is described. Our front door flies open, and Nadia comes running down the steps. She looks tiny against our massive white house. It's different from most of the other houses on the island. Modern lines and lots of glass. My mom helped design it. It was originally our summer home, and then we moved to Jar Island for good before my freshman year. I was the one who begged to move here, to be with Rennie and my summer friends. In the car on the way to school, the girls are talking about cheerleading practice and tryouts, and Lilia realizes she accidentally left her mini camcorder at home so they can't tape cheer tryouts. Yeah, that's how old this book is. Rennie is like, How are we going to film cheer tryouts now then? And Lilia's like, Well, deal. But like the way Lilia says it, it's like kind of like in a way that hints that there is like tension between Lilia and Rennie. Yeah, in the car, Rennie and Nadia start talking. Meanwhile, like Lilia is now in kind of like her own world and she's looking outside the window as like the car passes this group of rental cottages like in her neighborhood, and she focuses on one in particular, and there's more on this later. Then we go back to the conversation with Rennie and Nadia, and Rennie asks Nadia which football player she wants to cheer for, and Nadia immediately says, Alex. Rennie teases her, and she's like, Oh, you better ask your sister, like, he's her boy toy. And Lilia is not having that. She's like, Rennie, shut up. And then Lilia says to Nadia, We can't show favoritism like that. I mean, how would it look, us giving a senior starter to a freshman? Besides, you have to try out. You haven't made the squad yet. But like Loki Nadia has because nepotism. Um, Rennie says that Nadia is most likely to be the freshman star of the cheerleading team, but Lilia says she needs to work on her back handspring. It's weak. And then it goes really quiet in the car. Lilia then says in her internal dialogue, I know how badly she wants to make the squad. We practiced all summer, back handsprings and tumbling and stunts in our routines. I told Nadia that when Rennie graduates, it will be her on top of the pyramid. I told her she'll be set at Jarha High, just like her big sis. But now, I'm not so sure I want her to be anything like me or Rennie. Not anymore. Kat has just arrived at school and she sees Alex's SUV in the parking lot. Kat then recalls her Saturday night. In this book as well, there's a lot of flashback scenes, so I will preface this now. Kat recalls her Saturday night. And on Saturday, it was her 18th birthday, and she pretty much spent the night with her brother and her dad, and she starts to debate whether or not she should go to Alex's because Alex messaged her there was a party at his house. And to remind you, Kat cannot stop thinking about Alex after they hooked up in his uncle's yacht. At 1 in the morning, Kat is like, screw it. I'm gonna go over to Alex's. She takes her dog Shep out on a walk and walks over to Alex's. And by the time she gets there, the party at Alex's is over, but she's like, whatever. Like, I'm just going to see if Alex is here. She walks to the pool house in his backyard because that is where Alex lives. Pretty much through the window, she can see Alex sleeping, and she like kind of watches him sleep for a second like a creep. And then she notices a small body curled up next to him in the sheets. Hmm, who could this be? We are now back at school with Kat, and she sees Alex hanging out with Lilia and Rennie. The one thing about Kat's internal dialogue is that she does not hold back. Rennie and Lilia are dressed for the first day of school in some stupid movie. Lilia's got a lollipop in her mouth. That goody two shoes has a serious oral fixation. And Rennie, just the way she stands in her heels, one hip out to the side, hands on her back, pushing her pathetically small chest out as far as it can go. I can tell she's ready to own the school now that she's a senior. She's been waiting for this moment her whole freaking life. So Kat decides to walk by them, and Alex decides to tell Kat, oh, like, happy birthday. And Kat, making small talk with him, asks, like, oh, like, how was your party the other night? And, like, she tries to pretend that she didn't see Alex sleeping with another girl in his bed. And Alex is obviously clueless, and he's just like, yeah, I didn't even know there was going to be a party. Like, it was all Rennie. She was just like looking to have a party. And he starts talking about how Rennie and Lilia had planned a Little Mermaid themed party. So Kat being Kat, she just wants to get out of this conversation and the small talk, and she starts becoming distant, and Alex finally realizes that Kat is mad at him. Before Kat can say anything to him, Rennie comes up to both of them. Kat snaps at her and walks away. And then Rennie says to Alex, what were you even talking to her about? Are you trying to hire her to clean your uncle's yacht? And Kat reveals to us that Rennie and her actually used to be best friends. They ended their friendship, and Rennie started to spread a bunch of rumors about Kat and her family. And she says, it was hilarious. What a huge liar she was. She actually believed her own bullshit. Anyway, it wouldn't have mattered what I'd said. People were going to believe what they wanted to believe. So before Alex and Rennie can walk away, Kat turns around, catches up to them, and bumps into Rennie as hard as she possibly can. So now we are back in Mary's point of view, and Mary is biking to school, and she starts thinking about Mystery Guy again. And she says, I wonder what will happen when everyone else fades away and it's just the two of us standing toe to toe. I could say, hello, Reeve, calm and even. I could say, didn't think you'd see me again, did you? Mystery Guy ends up being Reeve, if you didn't come to that conclusion already. And yeah, Mary finally arrives at the high school and she gets there and she realizes, I don't actually know anyone here. Um, but she knows that Reeve is around because, like, in her intuition, she can feel it. She's like, he is somewhere around here. Mary witnesses the fight going on between Kat and Rennie. They're literally threatening each other. They are threatening to K-word each other. Rennie says some insulting things to Kat, and in retaliation, Kat spits a huge loogie in Rennie's face in front of everyone. Remember, this book came out pre-Euphoria, so like the cat fights that happen in these books like are nothing in that level compared to like what you see on Euphoria. So yeah, Rennie screams and Kat walks away from her. Lilia is trying to help Rennie when all of a sudden Reeve shows up. Mary sees him and becomes frozen. She can't move. She says, I don't hear it. I don't hear anything, just the pounding in my ears. Everything else is on mute because it's him, right there in front of me after all these years. It's Reeve Tabatsky. I'd know him anywhere. He has the same brown hair, same Roman nose, and those eyes, green like sea glass. He's taller now, much taller, broad shoulders, muscular arms. He's wearing a white t shirt and a worn looking pair of khakis, and he has a pair of mirrored aviator sunglasses perched on the top of his forehead. When we were young, he was a good looking kid, but now he's beautiful. He's so beautiful. Mary watches Reeve carry Rennie away, and they walk past her, but they don't acknowledge her or anything. And, you know, Mary, seeing Reeve, is freaking out internally. And she's like, did he see me? Like, did he remember me? Like, and we don't know exactly why she's acting like this because of Reeve. So Mary follows them into the school and ducks into the girls' bathroom and continues to freak out about seeing Reeve. After that, now we are back in Lilia's point of view, and she is sitting with her friends Rennie, Ashlyn, Alex, Reeve, PJ, and Derek at their new lunch table. Because remember, we are at an American high school, and the area in which you sit in the cafeteria determines how popular you are. So at this lunch table, you see the different dynamics between each of the characters in the friend group. Reeve and Rennie start to do baby talk to each other. Reeve is telling Rennie that she needs to pick a good cheerleader to cheer for him because he is the star of player on the football team. And Rennie's like, I'll take care of it, you know. At the lunch table, Alex is being like really pissy, and his friends are like, "What's his problem? Like, what's going on, dude?" And like Rennie responds with PMS. Lilia decides to walk over to the vending machine to grab, you know, her Coke. Literally, we need a Coke counter. We need to count how many times Lilia drinks a Coke in this book. She goes to the vending machine, and Alex comes over to talk to her. And so it turns out Alex is pissed at Lilia and Rennie because they left him with a huge mess to deal with at his house on Saturday because of the party they threw. And it also turns out, according to Alex, that Rennie and Lilia left the party after half an hour so they could go to another one. And Lilia feels bad. She apologizes and she's like, me and Rennie will clean up the mess like after cheerleading tryouts are done. We now get a flashback to Saturday night. So Lilia says that Rennie was the one with the idea to throw the party for the boys as a welcome home party after their deep sea fishing trip, hence the Little Mermaid theme to it. Lilia's sister, Nadia, ends up at this party, and Lilia makes Nadia promise that she won't drink at this party. And she also makes Nadia and her friends dress up like minnows. So they're dressed in flippers and green tank tops and green shorts. The reason I'm saying this is that is important for later. The boys are at the party, smoking cigars except for Alex. I don't know why I included that detail. All of a sudden, Rennie gets a text, and it turns out it is a text from one of the college boys that were flirting with Rennie and Lilia at the beginning of the book. And this guy's name is Ian. And she says that Ian is throwing a party and that both girls are invited to it since it is the last day that the guys have the rental there. Lilia, being the goody goody that she is, she's like, we shouldn't leave our own party. Like, we are literally throwing this party, Rennie. And Rennie's like, no, like, it'll be fine. Like, we'll only leave for a little bit and, like, people won't even notice. And then Lilia gives in and she's like, okay, like, we can go for an hour and we can get changed in your car. And so Rennie leaves to, like, go check her makeup and head to her car. Meanwhile, when Lilia starts to walk toward the car, she is stopped by Reeve. And Reeve is like, where are you going? And Lilia's like, it's none of your business. Like, it doesn't matter. And Reeve says, so you throw Alex a welcome home party and then bail on it? Reeve waved his finger at me. You're not a nice girl, Cho. Then he started off. Lilia responds with, I never said I was. And she calls after him. We are now back in the present. And Lilia, she takes her Coca-Cola, opens it, and walks back to the table. And Reeve then asks Lilia why she's being so pouty. And in doing so, he accidentally knocks her Coke and ruins Lilia's white cashmere sweater. Like, Reeve tries to help her, and like he's like, dude, like, relax a little bit. And Lilia just gets more upset, and she says to him, for your information, this sweater costs $300, which is more than that jalopy you drive around. So, upset, Lilia runs into the girls' bathroom and starts to cry. And then suddenly, the door of the bathroom opens, and in walks in Kat DeBrasio. Kat is like, are you okay? And Lilia's like, I'm fine. We're still not done with Lilia's chapter yet, by the way. Lilia then has a flashback to how she first met Rennie. So apparently, Lilia and Rennie met in the concession stand line at their local movie theater. And Rennie had told Lilia that she really liked her polka dot flip flops. And then from there on, they became friends. And Lilia was then introduced to Kat through Rennie, and the three of them became best friends. So Lilia also reveals that Rennie and Kat were the reason that she moved to Jar Island in the first place, and they were all close friends for a while. But things changed after Rennie got a nose job. She says, when the bandages came off and the scars healed, Rennie was the one who decided we had to be cool in high school. Kat said it was dumb, and Rennie got pissed, and they had one of their blow-ups. I expected it to be over within a few days, the way their fights usually were, but a week later, Rennie was still pissed. She said Kat was immature. She didn't get it. She'd hold us back. Lilia does try her best to help them reconcile and all of that with one another, but ultimately, Rennie is like, no, we're dropping Kat. And so that's what happens between them. And so now we are back in the girls' bathroom, and Lilia says to Kat, honestly, I never thought your breath stunk, for what it's worth. Kat just stares at Lilia. She's like, what? Why are you saying something nice to me, And all of a sudden, they hear these shallow breaths come from one of the stalls in the bathroom. And they're just like, who is that? Like, who's there? And they get no response. So Kat walks over to the stall and kicks the door open. So Mary is sitting on the toilet, and Kat kicks open the door, and Kat and Lilia are just standing there looking at her who the fuck are you and why are you eavesdropping on our conversation? And Mary is like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to, my name is Mary, by the way, because Girly, no one knows who Girly is. And so they're like, oh, why are you so upset? And Mary's like, oh, I just saw someone I used to know. Kat being Kat, she's she wants to know who this person is, and starts asking questions about this person. And Mary responds, this guy, he used to torture me when we were in 7th grade. He basically got everyone in our grade to hate me. He's the reason my family moved away. Anyway, I saw him today for the first time in 4 years, and he didn't even recognize me after everything he did. So the girls ask Mary more questions, and then Kat finally realizes that the person she's talking about is Reeve. And Mary's like, how did you figure that out so fast, you know? And Kat is like, oh, like Reeve and I go way back because she has also known Reeve since like childhood. And Lilia's like, I'm not surprised it's Reeve because like he's practically a Neanderthal and he like ruined my sweater. And Mary is like, don't tell him I'm here, like please. And then Lilia's like, oh, don't worry, girl, like I already forgot your name. And she walks out of the girls' bathroom. Kat asks Mary if she's like, do you know why Lilia was crying? And Mary's like, I don't know. And then Kat like looks at Mary's class schedule and she's like, if you're 17, like why aren't you in any of my senior classes? Like why aren't we in any classes together? And Mary responds with, I got really sick at the end of 7th grade, so I was held back a year. So pretty much after that, Kat tells Mary, it's like, well, here's where you need to go for your classes, and also don't let Reeve get to you because we know Karma is a bitch and he'll get his. And then both of the girls walk out of the bathroom. It is cheerleading tryouts. So Rennie is with Coach Christy and they are doing the cheerleader evaluations. And Lilia and Ashlyn are sitting on the sidelines, and Nadia is also there with her friends for tryouts. And here is just Rennie's whole monologue because I honestly like think it's kind of funny. Like Rennie is low key an iconic character. She's problematic as hell, but she's also very iconic. Okay, here's the real deal. If you want to be a Jar Island varsity cheerleader, you have to look and act the full part full time. You're not just representing yourself. You're representing me. This is my squad. I have standards. Fingers crossed, we're getting new uniforms this season, and they're going to be crop tops. That means I don't want to see one french fry on anyone's plate at lunch. I'm serious. Also, Dory, you need to retire that jacket. It makes you look like a soccer mom. There can't be any weak links whatsoever. That means if your friend is slacking, you let her know. Like, just as for instance, Melanie, you need to commit these 3 words to memory stat: cleanse, tone, moisturize. I want everyone to check out Nadia's legs. That's the level of tan you need to have. If you don't, go see Becky at Mystic Beach on Sandstrap Street. She'll hook you up. And I'm not just talking to freshmen. Don't get too comfortable just because you're an upperclassman. Every girl on the squad every girl has to earn her spot here. I will not hesitate to cut any dead weight for the good of the squad. After trials are over, they're in the girls' locker room, and Lilia tells Rennie that, like, okay, we have to go to Alex's to clean up. And Rennie pretty much just, like, ignores Lilia, pretends not to hear her, and she just starts to talk about Reeve. Lilia, starting to get annoyed by Rennie, she's like, wasn't Reeve hooking up with, like, Teresa Cruz, like, all summer, you know? It's like, you're not dating or anything. And then because Lilia brought that up, Rennie gets mad at Lilia, and this is what their conversation looks like. Rennie won't even look at me as she packs up the rest of her things. Ren, I know you're still upset about what happened with Kat this morning. I don't even get to finish. Rennie levels me with a death stare. She says, I couldn't care less about that freak. Then she walks out of the locker room without saying goodbye. So Lilia ends up getting a ride from Ashlyn, who drops her off at Alex's house, and Lilia talks to Alex, but like the conversation with him is just super weird. She asks him, like, she's like, hey, like, can I get a Coke? And he's just like, he just nods over to his pool house, like, yeah, you know where it is. And this is the description of Alex's pool house for those of you who want to know. The pool house is basically Alex's apartment, complete with a living room, a kitchen, and a huge master bedroom. He has it set up like a bachelor pad, James Bond style, black leather sectional sofa, big screen TV mounted on the wall, an actual Coke machine by the bar, and he has a snack pantry that his mom keeps stocked with cookies and chips and anything you could ever want. His bedroom door is open, and I see one of our plastic palm trees deflated hanging over the back of his desk. His room is usually clean, but today it's messy for Alex. The bed's not made, and there are clothes on the floor. Lilia starts to go through Alex's room, and she spots a small pile of clothes on his bed, and there's a green tank top on the top of the pile. Lilia then recognizes this tank top because it is her sister's, the one she wore the night of the party. And Lilia spots a stain on the front of the shirt, and it smells of strawberry daiquiri, and she smells rum. Lilia then goes up to Alex and is like, "Why do you have my sister's shirt? And like, why does it smell of alcohol?" And Alex, is like, "Oh, like someone spilled something on her, so like I gave her one of my shirts to wear. Like it's not like she ran off with some other guy." And like the blood drains from Lilia's face. And she's like, "Was Alex just talking about Nadia? Or was he making a dig at me?" And then the rest of the time together, they spend cleaning. They don't speak to each other. Mary is back at her house and she's looking through an old photo album she found in the basement. And she looks at old photos of herself and she says, "It's no wonder Reeve didn't recognize me this morning. There's only a way to put it. I was fat." So, yeah, like that is sort of Mary's backstory. She was not a skinny kid. Mary then has a flashback to the first time she met Reeve at the Bell Harbor Montessori School on the mainland. Pretty much what happened was Reeve got a scholarship to attend the school, and he ends up being in her class, and it turns out he doesn't want to be there. And, since Mary is from Jar Island, she's like, "You know what, like, I should befriend him and, like, and welcome him to the school." It's lunchtime, and lunchtime is about to be over, and pretty much she sees Reeve, and he's like unsure of where to put his lunch tray. So Mary goes up to him and like tries to help him by taking his tray, and he says to her, "Don't you think you've had enough to eat?" And everyone around them starts to laugh. Mary says, "Reeve, he laughed the hardest of all. He was the first to leave the table, and everyone just followed him, even though he couldn't have known where our classroom was. He left his tray on the table. I ended up throwing away his lunch with my own." Back in real time. And Mary is having dinner with her aunt, and she tells her aunt about how her day went. She's like, "Not much happened, so I didn't say that much." And then Mary goes to her room, and she's like, "I really want to talk to my parents, but if I talk to my parents, they'll probably try to convince me to go back to the mainland." And apparently, the cell service on Jar Island as well is really spotty. So Mary leaves her bedroom and she sees her Aunt Bet, and her aunt is like, "Oh, are you okay? Like, do you need anything?" And Mary's just like, "Yeah, no, like a lot has happened, and it's just like weird to be home." And then Mary goes back to her room and eventually falls asleep. We are now back in Lilia's point of view, and she is at home sitting in the living room with her sister. And she realizes that their laundry is done. So she grabs the clothes from the laundry and she brings it back to the living room and she starts going through it. And she takes Nadia's tank top out and says to Nadia, "Oh, yeah, here's your shirt back." Nadia looks at her like, "Oh my gosh," and, starts to avoid Lilia's eyes. And Lilia's like, "Yeah, Alex told me you borrowed one of his shirts. Like, I was wondering where it is. Like when, like, we need to give it back to him." And Nadia's kind of just like sitting there in shock for a bit. And then Lilia's phone starts going off, and she says that it's Rennie texting the group chat saying that they're going to be meeting at the bow tie restaurant after like Rennie's shift is done there. And Nadia sees this and she tries to change the subject. She's like, "Oh, like, are you meeting with your friends later or something?" And Lilia's like, "Don't change the subject. Like, why were you like drinking at this party?" And Nadia, she tries to lie about it, but eventually she comes clean and she's like, "One of my friends gave me a drink. I thought it was a virgin one, but it wasn't." And then Nadia's like, "Why are you making such a big deal out of this? Like, you drank as a freshman all the time." And then Lilia gets mad at her and says, "Quit trying to justify it. You lied to me. You straight up lied to my face, Nadia." I fall back against the couch. I can't believe she lied to me. "You're on lockdown now. No parties, no hanging out with my friends because you obviously can't handle yourself. And if I find out that you drank more than you're telling me, you're done." So, like every sister fight, Nadia starts crying and Lilia goes up to her room and she says, "I never should have left her at that party. This is my fault just as much as it is Nadia's, maybe more. I'm her big sister. It's my job to look out for her, to keep her safe." We then get another flashback to Saturday night. So Rennie and Lilia arrive at this college party and they don't know anyone. And they see the two college guys and, find them. And pretty much the guys start making the girls drinks and like refilling their cups. And Lilia says, "We were having fun, the four of us. I stopped checking the time, stopped thinking about the other party we'd left to come here. I remember laughing over every little thing my guy, the tall one, said, even though nothing he said was that funny. I guess that's how drunk I was. Mike, that was his name." So we are then back in the present time, and Lilia knocks on Nadia's door and tries to talk to her again, and Nadia doesn't answer. And Lilia, doing her best to, like try to make amends with her, she's like, "Girl, like, I can drive us to school tomorrow. We can go get breakfast together, like, and Nadia doesn't answer. So Lilia just goes back to her bedroom. So now we are back in Kat's point of view. And Kat is with her dad and brother, and they had just finished dinner. And Kat pretty much can't stop thinking about the fight that she had with Rennie, and she's like, "I need to go on a walk to clear my head." So she takes her dog Shep out and she heads to the woods behind her house. And she recalls that she brought Alex there a lot over the summer, as she says, "There's a clearing on the other side where you can park your car and look right out into the ocean. It's secluded. Nobody really knows about it. A hidden T-town secret. We'd park there and listen to music or watch the moon. We just liked hanging out with each other. I liked that. I could be myself around him. And I think he felt that way too." So she's walking through the woods when all of a sudden she sees Alex's SUV. And she looks at it for a bit. And then she notices that there's a girl inside, Nadia Cho. Kat is like, no way. There's no way Alex is doing it with a freshman. So she immediately pulls out her phone and she's like dialing Lilia, and Lilia answers, and Kat is like, "Why the hell is your sister in Alex Lynn's car right in the middle of the woods right now?" And Lilia is like, uh, "Who speaking?" And Kat is like, "Girl, it's literally me. Your sister and Alex are hooking up." And then Lilia responds saying, like, "I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, my sister is home." And she says, "My sister is sitting next to me on the couch. I don't know what you're trying to do, but whatever it is, don't bother. And please don't call me again." So Lilia hangs up, and Kat is like, "Okay, maybe it's not Nadia because, like, Lilia doesn't know how to lie." And so, like, but Kat, she's like, "This is suspicious. Like, Alex is sitting in his car with a girl with dark hair, and the girl isn't me." Because, her and Alex were hooking up. And she's like, "We haven't even talked. Like, has he moved on that quickly, Kat decides to go for a drive around the island and starts, thinking about Alex. So Kat's driving, and then she's like, oh crap, I'm running out of gas. Let's go to the cheapest gas station I know. And the cheapest gas station is right next to the restaurant, the Bow Tie. So she starts pumping gas, and she looks over to the parking lot of the Bow Tie, and she sees Reeve, Rennie, PJ, Ashlyn, and no Lilia. And she's like, huh, I guess, yeah, Lilia wasn't lying when she said she was home. Kat sees them passing a wine bottle around when all of a sudden, Alex's SUV pulls up. And guess who comes out of the car? Nadia Cho. So Kat was right that it was Lilia's sister. And she says that Alex and Nadia are only there for a couple minutes, and Alex then drives Nadia home. So Rennie then sees Kat staring at them, and Rennie says to her, the gas station doesn't take food stamps. Kat, ignores her dig, and she starts telling us more about Rennie and says, Rennie thinks that just because she goes with Lilia's family on vacation to St. Bart's or whatever the fuck, that she's on their level. But she's not. She lives in a 2-bedroom condo with her single working mom. She works at Bowtie because she has to. That Jeep she drives was a hand me down from her mom's married boyfriend. Rennie might try to pretend otherwise, but we both know the truth. If I'm trash, then she is too. Kat drives home, and when she gets back at home, Alex ends up texting her. And Kat is mad at Alex for this whole Nadia thing, so she ignores him and says, I whip my phone across the room. That ass, like I'd ever speak to him again. He doesn't deserve to hang out with me, and he definitely doesn't deserve to make out with me. He associates with shitbags like Rennie and Reeve. He thinks they're quality people, and as far as I'm concerned, that makes him just as bad as they are. Today, I told that girl in the bathroom that Karma's a bitch. I meant when I said it, but now I'm not so sure. When has Rennie ever had to pay for any of the evil shit she's done to me? Never. I'm sick of waiting for Karma. Karma can suck it. We are in Mary's chemistry class, and Mary is super confused about what she is being taught. Me vibes. Anyway, she says, I've always got good grades at my old school. Then my life got screwed up, and since the brief stuff, I've always been behind. What if the school decides to put me back another grade? I'll be 18 and a sophomore. No, that can't happen. Mary then has a flashback to her and Reeve riding the ferry together. Because since they were the only ones at the school that were from Jar Island, they pretty much took the ferry every day to and from school. So after the lunch incident, Mary's like, I am going to avoid Reeve. So she ends up staying on deck while Reeve is inside, sitting inside the ferry. And she also reveals that Reeve gave her a nickname, Big Easy. So one day on the ferry, he calls out to her and Big Easy, come over here. And she does. And it turns out that Reeve was carving his initials into the seat, and he wanted to use Mary as his cover. So when he was done, he asked Mary, he was like, do you want to look at the blades of this pocket knife I have? And he pretty much starts telling her what each of the blades were used for, and does so for the rest of the ride. And he starts acting really friendly to her. And so when they get to the mainland, however, Reeve just walks away from her, and Mary's like, that was weird. I'm not gonna, walk with him. And so she slowly walks and is like, I'm not gonna catch up to him. So now we are back in present time, and the bell rings, and Mary leaves the classroom, and she sees Reeve in the hallway. She's like, perfect. Now I know exactly what I'm gonna do to him. I'm going to walk up to him, say his name real loud, then blow a fat kiss goodbye, and finally end this chapter of my life. She's like, I'm ready to let this thing go. And so she sees Reeve and starts to shout his name, but he doesn't turn around. And more people start crowding the hallway, and Mary pretty much becomes trapped in the crowd. And she starts screaming his name again, louder and louder. When all of a sudden, a gust of wind comes and it forces all the lockers in the area that are open to slam shut in unison. And like everyone goes quiet and they're just like, what was that? Like what just happened? And then everyone's like, you know what? Like it was probably just the wind, and they go back to their normal business. And Mary's only thought is like, I have to get out of here. Like I can't be here. And so she runs off in the other direction. We're now in Lily's point of view, and she's at school and she's recalling the night before when Kat called her, and she is like spiraling a bit after learning about Alex and Nadia. And on the drive to school, she's like, am I supposed to bring this up with my sister? Like, it's like, well, like maybe they were in the woods because they were planning a surprise birthday party for me. Like, there's no way they were hooking up at school. And Rennie then apologizes to Lilia for blowing her off, and Lilia accepts. And when they're talking, Lilia then notices that Kat is at the stairwell, and Kat mouths to her, we need to talk. Lilia's like, I'll see you in homeroom, Rennie. She waits for Rennie to get out of sight, and then Lilia follows Kat to the stairwell. And then Kat's like, we need to talk privately. And Lilia responds, seriously, Kat, you need to quit doing drugs. They're destroying your brain. We're not friends, remember? We haven't been for a really long time. So I don't want you calling me. I don't want you trying to talk to me at school. I'm sorry Alex played you for sex, but then Kat says, look, I don't know why you're playing dumb. Alex drove Nadia to hang out with all your friends at the Bowtie parking lot last night after their little hookup. Nadia and Alex drove up in his SUV, and Randy ran up to the window and kissed her hello. So Lilia, she was already like spiraling a bit before, but after this revelation, she is flabbergasted. And she's like, I'm not going to give Kat that satisfaction of knowing information I don't. So she's like, you're making things up. Lilia starts to walk away from Kat, and Kat says, we both know it, Lilia. We both know how Rennie is. It is after school, and Rennie, Lilia, and Ashlyn are hanging out by the pool at Lilia's house, and Lilia decided to invite Rennie to her house after school because she wanted to talk to her, but then Rennie ended up inviting Ashlyn. All of the boys show up, and Lilia is like mad at Rennie. She's like, why did you invite them? So Lilia ends up being mad at everyone because of the bow tie situation, but doesn't tell them. And, she gets mad at especially Rennie, but she starts pretty much acting very inhospitable to the guys. So the guys are like, we are leaving. Like, we don't want to be in this situation. As the guys are leaving, Lilia overhears Reeve say to Alex, I hear Reeve say, God, Cho was such a bitch. Do you think she knows that you and Nadia had a sleepover? I gasp. No way. Nadia swore to her that she slept at that girl Janelle's house. There's no way she'd tell her. So now, Lilia knows that Nadia had a sleepover at Alex's. And then Lilia returns to Rennie, and Rennie's like to Lily, she's like, you need to get your act together, girl. Like, people are going to think that something is wrong with you. And Lilia's like, okay, like, maybe I do need to get my shit together, but also, like, I want Rennie to stop talking. Rennie then starts telling Lilia that she and Reeve kissed at the bow tie last night. She says, Reeve and I kissed. I mean, it was only for a second. He pulled away and told me that I was too important to him to be a random hookup. Isn't that the sweetest thing you've ever heard? I'm telling you, we're like this close to being a couple. She does a spin like she's already wearing her wedding dress. I force a smile. You guys are perfect for each other, honestly. So now it is after dinner, and Lilia receives a text from a number she doesn't recognize. And it says, this is Karma. I'm a bitch. Can you think of anyone who deserves a bitch slap? If so, meet at Judy Blue Eyes, 2 a.m. If not, sit back and enjoy the show. XO, XO, Gossip Girl. XO, XO. A. Just kidding. It's neither of those people. Lilia recognizes that this is Kat texting her because Judy Blue Eyes is the name of Kat's boat, which is named after her mom, Judy, and her mom's favorite song. So Mary is home from school, and it is now Mary's turn to spiral about what happened at school with the wind and the lockers. And she's like, I don't think I can face Reeve again. Like, I need to get off this island now. Like, I have to leave now. Aunt Bet can send my clothes and all of that back to me in the mainland. Like, I need to get going. I need to leave and never come back. And so Mary ends up walking to the ferry dock to buy a ticket, and she overhears from to the people there that the 4 p.m. ride on the ferry is sold out, so she will have to wait for the 6 p.m. ferry instead. So Mary waits there, the sun starts to go down, and she's like, I cannot bring myself to buy a ticket yet. Like, something is making me stay on this island, and I don't know what is happening to me. We are now in Kat's point of view, and it is 2 in the morning, and Kat is in her dad's convertible waiting for Lilia to show up at their meeting spot. And after waiting a while, she's like, I give up. I'm going to go home. And so she pulls into the ferry parking lot to turn around when all of a sudden she sees a girl sitting on the curb of the sidewalk. And that girl ends up being Mary. So Kat's like, bathroom girl, like, what are you doing out here so late? Like, the ferry rides like are gone. Like, the ferries are gone. Like, you're not gonna get another one till tomorrow morning. And Mary is like, honestly, I think I'm losing my mind. But I'm literally just gonna wait here and see if, like, tomorrow morning I'll have the actual guts to leave this island. And then Kat just is like looking at her. She's like, is this about Reeve? And Mary responds, it's always about Reeve. So Kat is about to respond to that, but then she sees Lilia's silver Audi flying by to their meeting spot. And Kat's like, no way she showed up. And so she's like, Mary, get in my car. Like, we need to go meet Lilia right now. Mary hops in and they drive off. So the three girls meet up, and Lilia's like to catch. She's like, "You're late," and then she sees Mary, and she's like, "No, there's no way I'm spilling my secrets and all of that to her. She's a stranger. I don't know who she is." Yeah, and then Kat stops Lilia from leaving the meeting. She's like, "Don't leave now. You wouldn't have come here if you didn't want to get Alex as badly as I want to get Rennie." So like Mary is just sitting there listening to this conversation. She's just like, like, I really don't think I should be here. I don't think I should be an accomplice. Like, I'm glad y'all are doing something about it, but good luck. And Mary starts to walk away. And then Kat is like, wait, like, don't leave. Like, do you want in on this as well? Like, we know you're pissed at Reeve. And Mary is like, okay, like, if you guys help me get Reeve, like, I guess I'll help you guys do whatever you want. Okay, so to summarize, Lilia wants to get revenge on Alex for sleeping with her sister and lying about it. Kat wants to get revenge on Rennie for being mean to her for so many years. And Mary wants to get revenge on Reeve because what he did to her when they were kids. That's like, okay, we shouldn't meet out here, like, in case someone overhears us. Like, let's meet in my boat down at the dock over there. And so Kat takes them to her boat, which is a Catalina Dale sailor, which I suspect is a small boat. I'm not a rich person, so like I don't care to put this information in my mind. So Kat and Mary get into the boat, and Lilia stays on the dock because one thing about Lilia is she's a fear of water, because she doesn't know how to swim. Here in this meeting, they set the ground rules about what they're going to do. So the first one is rule number 1 is each of them has to participate in all 3 acts of revenge. This is so that no one can back out or blame someone else. Rule 2 is that they aren't allowed to text or talk to each other in public. So that means no talking at school and no texting each other in case someone comes across their texts. And number 3 is that no one is allowed to bail halfway. It is an all or nothing situation. After establishing the ground rules, For the rest of the night, the girls pretty much brainstorm how they want to get their revenge, and the first person that they want to start with is Alex. And Lilia says, I want to make it so no one in Jar Island will ever hook up with Alex Lind again. So, how do we make that happen? I'm so sorry that if the lighting starts gradually changing, it's because the sun is going down. I'm trying my best here. So, if the lighting changes, sorry. Lilia and Rennie are trying to figure out what they want to do for the night. And Lilia, is trying her best to keep the revenge plan she has with Kat and Mary a secret, because they just had their meeting the other night. And, she's like, part of her really wants to tell Rennie about it, but she's like, oh, I literally can't. Like, Rennie is one of the people we're taking revenge on. And so Rennie and Lilia decide that they are going to go to Rennie's house for dinner and then they'll figure out their plans. So at Rennie's house, we meet Rennie's mom. And remember, like, Rennie was raised by a single mother on the island. So she's like not actually rich and she actually lives in like one of the dingy apartment and she just like acts rich and above everyone else. And pretty much Lilia also mentions to us that Rennie's dad really isn't in the picture and her mom has a boyfriend. And so Rennie and Lilia eat pizza at her house, and Lilia suggests that they go see a movie afterwards. And Rennie's like, oh, is it going to be a girls' night? You, me, Ashlyn. And Lilia's like, nah, like, let's invite the boys, like Reeve, PJ, and Alex, because who is going to buy my candy? We get a flashback to the college party that Rennie and Lilia attended. So, in this flashback, Lilia is unconscious and she is lying on a leather couch, and Rennie wakes her up. So, Rennie tells Lilia, she's like, we gotta leave. It's like really early in the morning. And so, like, they quickly put on their clothes and they leave and like run out of the house. And Lilia's like, at first, like, the night was really blurry, but then everything becomes clear to her. She says, taking the shots of tequila, following the guys up to the bedroom. They said we were going to watch a movie. Mike kissing my neck, picking me up, putting me on the desk. I kissed him back. I liked it. Then I didn't. I said no. I think I said no. Didn't he hear me? So Lilia then starts to throw up, and like Rennie is like, girl, we have to walk home. My Jeep is blocked in the driveway. Like, we have to walk. And like, Lilia is freaking out. And she's like, what do you mean walk, girl? Like, I think Mike put something in my drink. Like, I need to go to the hospital. Like, I don't even know if he used a condom. Like, what if I have an STD? And Rennie, meanwhile, is like, no, girl, you're fine. I saw him. He used a condom. Like, relax. We need to get out of here. And Lilia is like, if you know all this, like, why didn't you help me? Like, why didn't you stop him? And she says, I remembered now, calling her name. I saw her with Ian in bed. Mike was kissing me down my neck, pulling the front of my bathing suit as low as it would go. I called out, Rennie. Then I blacked out. Well, in this situation, Rennie's like, girl, you are having a good time. And Lilia is furious with Rennie. And she's like, no, I wasn't. Like, you knew this wasn't the way I wanted it to happen. Like, I didn't want to lose my virginity like this. And so in this flashback, they start going back and forth, and while they walk back to Rennie's place. And then when they get to Rennie's place, Rennie then says to Lilia, tonight never happened. We're never talking about this ever again. So after that, now we are back in the present, and the girls pick up Ashlyn and meet the boys at the movie theater, and Lilia starts to flirt with Alex for a bit. Get your own box, he says. But the backs of his ears are pink, and the corners of his mouth are turned up in a smile. Just like that, I know I've got Alex right where I want him, thinking everything's cool between us, and that I don't suspect a thing. We are now in Mary's point of view, and Mary sneaks out the house and climbs into the back seat of Kat's car. They drive to Lilia's house, and Lilia comes into the car wearing all black because this is her stealth outfit. And it turns out that they are planning to drive to Alex's house to enact their first part of the Alex revenge plan. So they park a few houses down and they talk about the game plan. So the plan is to break into Alex's SUV because that's where he keeps his diary. And what is going to happen is Kat is going to look for the notebook while Lilia is going to grab his sunscreen so she can replace it with a zit cream called Retin A. So when Alex pretty much lathers himself in the sunscreen and he goes out into the sun, he is going to get the worst sunburn of his life. In this plan, Mary is in charge of being the lookout because they need to be careful since Alex is still at home living in the pool house. So the girls end up walking to Alex's car while Mary stays out as lookout, and once they get into the car, Lilia and Kat are having trouble finding this notebook, but eventually Kat finds it under the driver's seat and Lilia grabs the sunscreen and they both leave the vehicle and Kat and Mary run to Kat's car. Lilia, however, she decides to stay back a bit because she sees a huge rock near one of Alex's potted plants and throws it at Alex's rear window and it breaks. So, obviously, makes a loud sound. The lights in Alex's house turn on, and Lilia runs to Kat's car and they drive away. Then they start going through Alex's notebook, which is apparently full of poetry because Mr. Alex Lind is a poet, and one of his poems goes like this: all your doors are locked. None of my keys fit. The longest hallway leads to you, but I never reach the end. Longest hallway, long, long hallway. Longest hallway. True poetry right there. So they start making fun of Alex, and for part 2 of their plan, Kat says that she is going to make copies of these poems and put them up all over the school. So Kat then remembers that Lilia took the sunscreen and she's like, oh, like, what are we going to do with this Retin A stuff? And Lilia's like, oh, like, I'll just sneak into the guy's locker room and, like, during football practice and put it in his bag. And that is the end of the first night of revenge. Now, in Lily's point of view, and she is in the boys' locker room trying to find Alex's locker and his bag, and she's like, I can't find it. Like, I give up. I have to come up with a new plan to get this sunscreen back into his bag. So she is now at cheer practice, and Rennie is giving the rundown of which cheerleader is cheering for which football player. And again, I'm just going to read Rennie's quotes because she's so iconic when it comes to these cheerleading scenes. She says, most of you guys already know the drill. Everyone is assigned a football player to take care of. You decorate his locker on game day, you bake his favorite cookies, you basically get his spirits up and his head in the game. I had QB1 Joe Blackman from when I was a freshman to when he graduated because he requested me every single year. You want to know why? I'll tell you why. Because I'm the best. I gave it 1000% every game. I anticipated Joe Blackman's needs without him having to ask. Sugar-free peanut butter cookies, fresh baked that morning. Special cheers when he needed the boost. And honestly, I take pride in the fact that Joe's playing Division III football in college because I know I helped him get there. Cheering's not just about wiggling your butt and looking pretty. It's dedication to excellence. And by the way, Paige, your toe touches were looking weak as hell at practice yesterday. Once Rennie is done with the speeches, she assigns Lilia the job of telling everyone their players' info. And so Lilia says, I look down at the list of the boys on the football team with their birthdays, favorite cookies, home addresses, cell phone numbers, and their locker combinations, both gym and regular. I want to kiss this piece of paper. Alex Lind, you are so dead. It is now Wednesday, and Lilia tells us that Alex's skin is pink, tender, and cracking. So at the lunch table, everyone is losing their appetite because of the way Alex looks, and like everyone is looking at him. He's like, what is up with your skin, dude? Like, it's gross. And Alex is like, And Alex is like, ugh, like we've been out for like in the sun for football practice for the past 2 days. Like I think I'm probably like getting a allergic reaction to something. I don't know. I have a dermatologist appointment tomorrow. Like I'll figure it out. Reeve comments. Reeve throws his arm around Alex and says, "Hey, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't be going to a dermatologist about your skin. Maybe you should go to a gyno. You could have caught some crazy kind of herpes from Debrasio." Alex obviously takes offense to this, and for both him and Kat. And then he walks out of the cafeteria. We are now in Kat's perspective, and it is after school on Wednesday, and Kat goes to visit the mainland to visit her friend Kim. So Kim is mentioned in a couple other chapters of Kat's, but she's really not that important. Like the only thing you need to know is that Kim owns a music store and Kat needs to use her copy machine to print out Alex's poems. And so she starts to read Alex's notebook and she's like, I need to find a poem that's more embarrassing than the hallway one. And then she finds one called Red Ribbon, and it goes like this. Winter starts falling, so I keep wishing. I love the way you look in sweaters. Can we Eskimo kiss all night long? 'Cause your red ribbon has me tied up in knots. Now we are back in Lilia's perspective, and it is now Saturday night, and Reeve has invited his whole friend group over to one of his dad's rental properties. So they're just chilling, hanging out, when all of a sudden, Rennie comes up with the idea to play Spin the Bottle. One thing about Jenny Han is she will always add a spin the bottle scene to her books. Like that is now her whole like thing. Um Lilia is like, "Oh, like I am not about this." Like she's like, "I am leaving right now. I got a curfew. I got to go." And Rennie is like, "You don't have a curfew, girl, like stay." And Lilia's like, "Fine, but I'll just watch." And then Rennie tells everyone that it's Lilia's turn to go first. Ashlyn decides to spin the bottle for her. And who does it land on? Reeve. Reeve tries to change the bottle, so it lands on Alex. And Lilia's thinking in her head, she's like, no, like, I cannot kiss Alex. I don't want to kiss Reeve either. Like, I really don't want to kiss anyone because Lilia, she still has trauma from that college party. So Reeve and Lilia crawl into the middle of the circle and they're about to kiss when all of a sudden Reeve plants a kiss on Lilia's forehead instead. It is now Reeve's turn to spin the bottle. After Reeve spins it multiple times due to different circumstances, it finally lands on Rennie. And then Reeve and Rennie start making out in the circle. And she's like, Rennie is making a total fool of herself in front of everybody, especially Reeve. He already let her down easy. It's obvious he doesn't want to date her, but it only makes Rennie want him more. It's pathetic. We are now in Mary's point of view, and Mary is in Spanish class and she's thinking about the other night with Kat and Lilia. And remember, Mary has never had any close friends before, and a lot of it is due to the trauma because of Reeve. And so this is the first time she's actually hung out with people her own age that have wanted to hang out with her. And so she says, that night was maybe the most fun I have ever had. Sneaking out with Lilia and Kat, laughing our butts off, speeding through the darkness. This isn't just about Reeve. It's about me. It feels like fate or magic, these girls coming into my life right when I needed them the most. So after that, Alex walks into her class because Mary and Alex are apparently in the same Spanish class, and Alex is late because he said he had a doctor appointment, and he tries to explain this to the teacher in Spanish when all of a sudden the fire alarm goes off. It turns out that Kat was the person that set off the fire alarm. So as the school is being evacuated, Kat is like, okay, I have work to do. So she takes out the photocopies of Alex's poems from her bag and she starts hanging them up along the seniors hallway at school. And she's like, I gotta do this as fast as I can gotta stay outside. I can't get caught. And so when she's done, she hides in the auditorium while people try to find the fire. And Kat says they won't find one, but Alex is going to get burned. Lilia is now standing outside because of the fire drill, and she's like, I wonder if this is Kat's doing. Like this doesn't feel like a fire drill. And so the students, after a couple minutes, are finally allowed to enter the school. And when they enter the seniors hallway, everyone sees the posters that Kat has hung up. Lilia says, I'm walking down the school hallway when I see them. Our posters with Alex's smiling face and his poem right next to it. On lockers, on walls, they're everywhere. So Lilia starts reading the poem, and then she's like, wait a minute, this is not the hallway poem that we read before. And she notices the title, Red Ribbon. Lilia then has a flashback to Christmas time in her freshman year. Lilia's family, according to Lilia's family is friends with Alex's family. So Lilia and Alex were hanging out at his family's annual holiday party, and at this party, Alex had noticed Lilia's red ribbon in her hair, and this surprised Lilia. So he then starts to awkwardly sort of flirt with Lilia, and Lilia is just making the situation more awkward, and it gets to the point where Alex has to get up and he has to go to the bathroom, and he tries to avoid the situation, and Lilia just returns to whatever the hell she's doing. And so now back at school, obviously all of Alex's friends are laughing at him, and Alex is obviously embarrassed and furious by the situation. And then Reeve starts to make fun of him, and Alex leaves angrily again. And Lilia's like to Reeve, she's like, you are being a jerk, and Reeve tells her to get a sense of humor. Um, Lilia starts walking away from Reeve, and she's like thinking in her head, she's like, there's no way this poem is about me. Like, there's no way he likes me that much. Like, why would he sleep with my sister then? Like, I'm so confused. As Mary sees Reeve in the hallway at school, and for once, she doesn't spiral or freak out. That is character development. Um, Mary sees Lilia. Now, Lilia tells Mary that they they should meet at the school pool after school. Mary meets Kat and Lilia at the school swimming pool, and they pretty much talk about what happened at school. And Mary is like, no one suspects it was us, right? And Kat says to her, no one suspects it was us, and no one even knows who you are. So then Lilia then suggests that they start their revenge on Rennie and Reeve, and Kat is like, no way, I still want to get Alex back. And Lilia is like, it's my revenge, like, I be the one to say we stop. And, this is also kind of Kat's revenge as well, because she's just, like, mad at Alex. And so Lilia and Kat start to, like, argue for a bit, and Mary is kind of just, like, standing there, like, getting all the tea from them, because, obviously Mary isn't in their sort of circle, so that she doesn't know what's going on. The girlies are about to start fighting again when Mary's like, okay, I have to put a stop to this. And she says, I can tell they're about 2 seconds from going at it again. The thought of me not getting revenge, this whole thing falling apart before I get to Reeve, it's unthinkable. But if it's this hard for Lilia, I know it'll be even harder for me. I'll just have to keep reminding myself that Reeve deserves this. He deserves everything that's coming to him. And then some. So then Mary says to the girls, and she's like, look, I know you two have a complicated history and there's a lot of stuff in your past, but none of that matters anymore. We're all here because somebody hurt us. If I had a sister and someone took advantage of her, I'd want to get them back tenfold. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's being a good big sister. What you're doing right now, it's protecting your sister. I I wish someone had done that for me. So now the situation is now okay, and the girls go over the plans for what they are doing for tomorrow's football game. So we are now in Kat's point of view, and she says it is Friday night, and she's hanging out with her friends Ricky and Joe. These guys aren't important at all. Kat just needs a ride to school without it looking suspicious. So Kat arrives at the school with her friends, and she stands underneath the bleachers on the football field, and she watches Lilia warm up. Lilia sees her and gives Kat a nod, saying that the plan is in place. Mary is sitting in the bleachers and she sees Rennie and Lilia on the football field helping the other cheerleaders get ready for the game. Mary then watches the football players and she's paying attention to Reeve as they're entering the field. So we then get a flashback to Mary and Reeve. It is raining outside, and they had just gotten back to Jar Island from the ferry. And Mary notices that Reeve's dad isn't there to pick him up. So she offers to give him a ride, and he's like, sure. So Mary's mom ends up taking them out for ice cream, and then they drive Reeve home. And she says, we waited until he was safely inside, when then we headed home. I couldn't stop smiling the whole way home. Reeve liked me. He was my friend. Everything was going to change. Things did change after that day. Reeve stopped racing off the ferry and leaving me behind. He waited for me, and we walked to school together. We are back at the football game, and the girls in front of Mary are swooning over Reeve. And the girls then start talking about Reeve and Rennie, and then Mary starts to watch Rennie, and she says, Rennie's climbing onto the very top of the cheering pyramid. She's so tiny. She probably weighs like 90 pounds max. I watch her sneakers grind down on the backs of her teammates as she pulls herself higher and higher. A few of them wince. Girls like Rennie get whatever they want. They don't care who they step on. It's not right. I let out a breath I'm holding. At that very moment, Rennie stumbles as she's rising to the very top. The whole crowd sees it happen. Some of them gasp. She ends up falling straight backward and crashes into the arms of her spotters, who then lower her gently to the ground, unhurt. Mary is like, not like there's no way I could have like done anything to make that happen, right? Like that wasn't me. Like I didn't will that to happen. On the football field, the announcer starts to list the names of the senior football members because apparently Kat and Mary planted this list in the announcing booth earlier that morning. So he says, quarterback and captain, number 63. Choosing number 63 is crazy, by the way. Reeve Tabatsky. Kicker, number 27, PJ Moore. And wide receiver, number 46, Alex Limp. So everyone is just sitting there confused, like, what? Like, his last name is Lind. And the announcer says his name again, Alex Limp. And Reeve and PJ are laughing at him and tell Alex to turn around. And when he does, they see that on the back of his jersey, it doesn't say Lind, it says Limp. So it turns out that Lilia had switched his old jersey for this new one. And everyone is shocked. Like the cheerleaders stop cheering. Alex is embarrassed and he's trying to take off his jersey. And Reeve, he goes over and tries to help Alex, but Alex sees Reeve laughing at him and then gets mad at him. Reeve and Alex literally start physically fighting on the football field while everyone watches, and there is pretty much drama all around. And then the fight between Alex and Reeve finally gets broken up, and the football game starts. So then at halftime, Mary pretty much walks past the cheering bench. Lilia passes Mary and gives her a nod. Mission accomplished. Kat tells us that she left the football game at halftime because it was getting mind-numbingly boring. It is now Monday morning, and her friend Ricky picks her up on his motorcycle. And in this chapter, there are literally 5 paragraphs about how hot Kat is dressed. And she's doing this because of Alex. And so Ricky drives her to school and she sees Alex's SUV parked and she's like, drop me off near it. when Kat gets there, she sees Alex talking to Reeve and Rennie, and she guesses that they are trying to convince him that they had nothing to do with the pranks and all of that have been happening to him. Alex eventually makes amends with them, and because of this, Alex misses Kat's bomb ass entrance. But Rennie sees her and says, "Love the outfit, Kat. Biker whore is the perfect look for you." And so Kat passes Rennie's Jeep and she's like, fuck it. She decides to unscrew the cap of her front tire and use her heel that she's wearing to deflate it. Rennie and Lilia decide to go homecoming dress shopping on the mainland, and they take Rennie's Jeep and go shopping. Lilia and Rennie are trying on dresses. Rennie asks Lilia, "You know that new junior girl?" And Lilia is thinking in her head, like, oh my gosh, like, is she talking about Mary? And Rennie says to her, "I'm sure you've seen her, Lil. Our school's not that big. Anyway, a bunch of the junior boys were saying that she's so hot. They're all going to vote for her for homecoming court, but she's not that pretty, if you ask me. Definitely not homecoming caliber pretty. I bet her hair isn't even really blonde. I bet she dyes it." Lilia is like, whew, okay, she doesn't know about Mary and I, like, she doesn't expect anything, so I'm good. Rennie is still trying on dresses, and Lilia is starting to get annoyed with her. And Rennie then asks Lilia if she thinks Reeve will like her, like the dress she has on. And Lilia's like, "What? I thought we were going as a group for homecoming." And Rennie says, "Not anymore. Ash is going with Derek, PJ is going with that cute sophomore girl, Allie, and I'm going with Reeve." Mind you, Rennie hasn't even asked Reeve yet to attend the dance, and Rennie suggests that Lilia go with Alex, and Lilia's like, "Nah, I don't want to go with Alex," and Rennie continues to try to convince her to go with him. And Lilia continues to get more annoyed with Rennie, and she starts to mention to Rennie that homecoming queen is going to be tough, and Rennie responds, "I'm not worried, I'm telling you, Lil. I've got this in the bag. The silver one, that's a homecoming queen's dress." After hearing this, Lilia suddenly gets hit with an idea for how she can get back at Rennie. So now Lilia and Rennie are back on the island after their shopping trip, and Rennie tells Lilia that they are going to swing over to Alex's place so she can talk to Reeve. So they get to Alex's, and Reeve and Rennie are in a different room having a conversation. And Lilia has a conversation with Alex, and Alex is like to Lilia, he's like, "Rennie's asking Reeve to homecoming right now, isn't she?" And Lilia's like, "I don't understand why we have to go as couples. Like, I just want to go as a big group." And Alex says to her, "Yeah, I guess you're right." But he looks really disappointed. Rennie then comes back into the room, and her cheeks are flushed and she is smiling, and she's just like, "Okay, Lilia, we can go now." Lilia visits Kat at her house at 1 in the morning, and Lilia starts poking around Kat's room and starts bringing up things that she remembers from their childhood when they were friends. And Lilia spots the necklace that she bought for Kat, her, and Rennie when they were all still friends. And pretty much Kat then has a flashback to when her, Lilia, and Rennie were still friends. And it turns out that Rennie and Kat were super close. Meanwhile, Lilia was the one that was actually more quiet and reserved. And Rennie didn't actually like Lilia and Lilia's family because they were rich. And I'm just gonna read this paragraph because I am too lazy to paraphrase. Um, Kat says, "At the end of that first summer, when Lilia left for her real life, I was sure things would go back to normal. And they did. Or when Lilia came back the next summer, Ronnie stuck to her like glue, the way she used to do to me. It pissed me off, but by this time my mom was really sick and I needed my best friend, however much I could get of her. When Lilia came to live on our island for good, Rennie and I had that stupid fight right before school started. That was it. We were over. The hilarious thing is, I was the one who set the whole thing in motion. After that first time we went to Lilia's house, when Rennie wasn't sure about her, I could have gone along with it, but I didn't. I was the one who said, 'Give her a chance,' and Rennie listened. Back then, I was the only one Rennie would listen to. So now we are back in present time, and Lilia tells Kat her idea for how they could get back at Rennie. And Lilia suggests that they should do everything in their ability to make sure Rennie doesn't get homecoming queen. And Kat's like, I like that idea. We should tell that to Mary. And then Kat hands Lilia Alex's notebook and tells her to think of it as a trophy because she earned it. It's nighttime, and Mary is at home lying in her bed, and then she hears pebbles hitting her window, and she looks down to see Kat and Lilia waiting for her outside. Mary's Aunt Bet also hears them, and so Mary pretends to be asleep in her bed while her aunt comes into her room and looks out her window. Once her aunt leaves, Mary goes down to the girls, and the girls are waiting for her outside, and they're like to Mary, they're just like, is that your aunt? Like, she looks kind of witchy. Lilia and Kat then tell Mary that they have a plan for how they can get back at Rennie, and Kat says, homecoming ballots are passed out the week of the dance. Everyone votes, and then the ballots are put in the lockbox they use for student council elections, which is pretty effing ridiculous if you ask me. What we're going to do is break into that box and change enough ballots so that Rennie loses homecoming queen. It will be the greatest disappointment of her sad little life. Mary is on board with this plan, and then she's like, okay, so like, does that mean Lilia is going to win homecoming queen then? And Lilia is like, no way, I don't want to win. And Lilia says, I think it'll be even worse if someone else takes her crown. Someone she would never think could beat her. Like Ashlyn. The revenge plan for Rennie is set, and now they just need to establish a plan for Reeve. So the girls ask Mary like what she thinks they should do to him, and Mary realizes that she has to reveal to the girls like what Reeve did to her. Whatever we do has to be big. It has to be cruel. It has to hurt him on the level that he hurt me, if that's even possible. Mary then starts to tell the girls about her history with Reeve. So she tells them about the nickname he had for her, Big Easy, how they went to the same school, took the ferry together, and pretty much all the other things we know about their relationship. And Kat and Lilia are like listening to this, and then they're like, why would you let him treat you like that? And Mary then reveals that she felt bad for him because he told me things, I say. He'd complain about his dad, who I think was a pretty bad alcoholic. He'd tell me about how his dad would drink, and then his dad would yell at Reeve and his brothers. I felt bad for him. He hated his dad. He said his dream was to get a scholarship to go to a big university off Jar Island and never come back. Lilia's hearing this, and she's like, what scholarship would Reeve get? Like, his grades suck. Um, and Kat actually reveals that Reeve used to be the smartest kid in their grade, and him going to that school in the mainland was actually a pretty big deal at the time because there was no way his family would have been able to afford that like if he didn't get the scholarship. Mary gets to the part of the story with Reeve that she hasn't revealed to anyone yet. I let myself think that there was something real between us, that I knew Reeve in a way that no one else did. But really, the Reeve I thought I knew didn't exist. The wind suddenly picks up, like a storm might crack open the sky above us. My hair whips around my face, stinging my cheeks. So, Mary has a flashback to the moment. It is after school, and Reeve and Mary are walking to the ferry together. A bunch of guys that go to their school that Reeve was playing basketball with end up seeing them together because Reeve accidentally left his notebook, and the guys were trying to give it back to him. So Reeve ends up pretending that like he just can't hear the guy, so he starts walking faster to the ferry, and Mary's like, okay, like this is a little weird, but she follows Reeve anyway to the ferry. So the boys catch up to Reeve and give him his notebook. Mary realizes that Reeve is acting like this because he doesn't want the other guys in their school to see that they were friends with each other. So Mary then says, I don't know where this surge of courage came from. Maybe because things had been good between us. Maybe because I wanted to put Reeve in a spot where he'd had to admit what was going on. Because maybe because I knew he didn't really care about what these guys thought of him from our conversations. There was one thing I did know for sure. Reeve had started the Big Easy thing, and it had caught on like wildfire. But if he showed everyone in class that we were cool, I knew it could end just as quickly. That's how big a deal he was. So, Mary then starts to shout at the guys walking away. She's like, "So what? We're friends." And she throws her arm around Reeve's shoulder. Reeve then looks at her in disbelief and he screams, "Get the hell away from me." And then Reeve decides to push Mary away from him and he pushes her towards the guys. And it turns out the guys were standing near the edge of the dock and they move away. And Reeve pushes her with enough force that Mary falls off the dock and into the water. Mary is now in the water, and the boys on the dock start commenting that Mary looks like a manatee in the water. And Mary is literally getting dragged in the water because of her clothes. Her clothes are weighing a ton, and the ferry workers end up pulling her out. And once she gets out of the water, Reeve is nowhere to be seen. So Mary, she gets onto the ferry and she sees Reeve sitting in his usual seat, just staring out at Jar Island and doesn't even acknowledge Mary at all. And pretty much they arrive on Jar Island, and Mary is like, "No, there's no way I'm gonna let my mom see me like this." And so she decides to sneak home, change her clothes, and pretend that she arrived on the ferry later. Mary arrives home and she goes to her room. So, okay, this is the really triggering part of the story. So, if you don't want to hear this, I'll put a timestamp somewhere here where you can skip ahead in the video. So skip ahead. I'll give you time now to do it. Yeah. And now I will tell you what Mary says. So Mary says, "I went up to my room and opened my closet with the intention to change clothes. Really. But instead of doing that, I found myself staring up at the beams on my ceiling. Then I got a rope from the basement and, after a couple tries, looped it over a beam and tied it into a noose. I dragged my desk over, slipped the rope over my neck, and then took a big step off the chair and dropped. But as soon as I fell, I realized that I didn't want to die. I started to fight, kicking my legs, trying to get the desk chair to roll back to me. But the rope was so tight I couldn't breathe. My weight swung me like a pendulum, and my feet kept knocking into the wall. I was starting to black out, lose consciousness." So, luckily, Mary's mom comes home and finds her. She gets her down, slips the rope off her neck, and calls 911. Now we are back in the present time with Kat and Lilia, and Mary continues. She says, "As soon as I was stable, my parents had me transferred to another hospital, one far away from Jar Island. I was out of school for a whole year doing therapy and stuff. The one thing that kept me going was the thought of coming back here one day and making Reeve own up to what he did." Kat and Lilia are horrified to hear what Reeve did to her. And Kat pretty much suggests that the only thing that they can do is K-word Reeve. And Mary's like, "Okay, let's not go that far. But I do want him to feel this pain I felt that day." Then the girls start to figure out what they should do with Reeve, and they realize one of the most important things to Reeve is football. So they decide to come up with a plan to get him kicked off the football team. And Mary is like, "Is that even possible? Like, how can we even do that? Like, he's literally the star quarterback. Like, no one would ever kick him off the team." And then Lilia comes up with the idea. "Drugs. Jar Island has a super strict no tolerance policy. Ever since that kid from Menlo High got caught smoking weed, our coaches have been watching us really carefully, making sure we don't do anything stupid. If we could somehow plant drugs in Reeves' locker or something, he'd be kicked off the team for sure, even if he is the quarterback." Mary brings up the point. She's like, "Well, what if, like, he says the drug isn't hit, like aren't his, and like, he takes a drug test and all of that to get him cleared, and Kat suggests that they will have to slip drugs into him without him knowing. And so Mary expects Lilia to object to this plan, but she doesn't, and Lilia says, "Let's do it at homecoming, when everyone will be watching. He'll definitely get homecoming king. We might as well knock him and Rennie out at the same time." Twirling her finger around her hair, she says, "He might even get expelled. Then you'd never have to worry about him again, Mary." And with that, the plan is set. Now it is Friday night, and Kat is waiting at the ferry dock for her brother's drug dealer. And again, I love Kat's internal dialogue, so here's what she says. "It's Friday night. Everyone and their mom is off the island for the first away game, and I'm down at the ferry dock, waiting for my brother's drug dealer to come in on the 8 o'clock. It's so perfect. It's almost cliche. If someone was here to take a picture for the yearbook, Kat DeBrasio, most likely to drug the QB." Kevin, the drug dealer, finally arrives, and Kat reveals that she stole her brother's phone to text him to get the drugs and pretends that she's getting the drugs for her brother. And Kevin's like, "I have the stuff, but like, your brother doesn't seem like an ecstasy kind of guy. Like, he's more of a stoner." And Kat's, she's trying to make an excuse for her brother. She's like, "Yeah, like, he's hooking up with some like chick right now, like, who isn't that cute. I don't know, maybe my brother needs help." And so Kevin just laughs at this, and he tells Kat that he couldn't get the regular E, so they'll have to use the liquid kind, which is apparently stronger than the regular kind. Um, I don't know much about drugs, so to me this checks out. And so Kat's like, "Okay, like, this is perfect. Like, Lilia, it'll make it easier for Lilia to slip it into Reeve's drink at homecoming then." But yeah, after Kat is done with Kevin, she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna swing over to Mary's house and see how she's doing." So she presses the doorbell, but no one answers. Kat then sees Mary's aunt dart past the window like she's trying to hide. And Kat then looks up to Mary's room and sees that the light is on, and then suddenly it turns off. And then Kat is like, whatever, and leaves for her car. So now it is Monday morning, and Lilia is in homeroom, and homecoming ballots are being handed out. And then Rennie, being Rennie, decides to stand in front of the class and make one last speech, and she says, "Before everyone votes, I just want to remind you guys of something. Homecoming Queen isn't a beauty contest, and it's not about popularity. It's about dedication and school spirit and making this a better place to go to school." So Rennie finishes her speech, and she says to Lilia, "This is so mine." So now Lilia is on the football field getting ready for Powder Puff Day, which, according to this book, is the day before the homecoming game. And I guess at this school, it is tradition for the senior girls on the cheerleading team to play flag football, and the football players that they cheer for dress up as cheerleaders. American traditions, I cannot confirm this or deny this as a Canadian. So, according to Lilia, Reeve is coaching one team and Alex is coaching the other team. And Lilia is literally like, "I do not want to be speaking to either of them right now." Lilia ends up being on Alex's team. And while they're, warming up, Alex calls Lilia over and he's like, "I need to talk to you." And Lilia's like, "Whatever, like, yes, coach, like, what do you want to talk to me about?" And then Alex is like, "What is your problem with me?" And Lilia's like, "I don't have a problem with you, coach. Like, can I go?" And Alex is like, "Okay, stop calling me coach. Like, I thought we were friends, but lately you're acting like you hate me. Like, I don't get it. Like, what did I do?" And so in this moment, Lilia decides to confront Alex about the Anadia stuff. "You want to be my friend? I'll tell you how. Don't call my sister. In fact, don't talk to her ever again. Don't come to our house in the middle of the night to get her to sneak out. Don't give her alcohol at parties. I found her shirt. I know that she slept over at your house that night. She's 14, you pervert." Alex is taken aback in disbelief by this accusation, and he says, "Pervert, you need to get your facts straight. First of all, I never gave her any drinks. She was sneaking rum with her friends, and by the time I caught them, she was already drunk off her ass. While you were at some other party, I was cleaning up her throw up and making sure she didn't leave and get caught by your parents. Her friends left her, so she had to spend the night. I stayed up the whole time to make sure she didn't drown in her own vomit, so you're welcome. Lilia then asks him why they were sneaking off in the middle of the night on the first day of school, and Alex responds, because she called me crying. She wanted to make sure you never found out she was drunk that night. She made me promise not to tell you. That's how much she cares what you think of her. I told her that you had every right to be upset and that I was going to be watching her too. That if she ever had a drink in front of me, I was going to make sure you knew about it. I can't believe you would ever think of that of me, Lilia. You and I have been friends since the ninth grade. Our families are friends. Nadia is practically my kid sister. I would never think of her like that. So, yeah, this whole thing between Lilia and Alex was pretty much a big misunderstanding. Lilia apologizes and they make amends with each other. And then Lilia starts running laps on the field and she says, I run them every last lap because if I stop, I'll have to start thinking about what he'd said and how I felt when he said it. And now, further on in the chapter, it is now Thursday and it is Powder Puff Day. And the game happens, and Reeve and Rennie's team win. And Leah says, after the game is over, Reeve throws Rennie over his shoulder and carries her off the field, screaming himself hoarse, as if they won the gold medal at the Olympics or something. They better enjoy it while they can, because they're about to lose big time. Oh, 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 oh. So now we are in Mary's point of view, and Mary is leaning against some lockers looking at Coach Christie's office because that is where the homecoming ballots are being kept, and Kat is standing by the water fountain, and both of them are waiting for their plan to begin. Lilia comes running into Coach Christie's office as a distraction, saying that she's like, there's a cheer emergency happening in the girls' locker room, like a freshman is having a breakdown or something, like I don't know what's going on, you have to come quick. And so Lilia and Coach Christie disappear, and Kat and Mary go into her office. And Kat finds the ballot box and picks a lock and starts to count the votes while Mary stays out as lookout. So it turns out Reeve won for Homecoming King, which they expected, so there's no surprise there. And Kat finds Rennie's votes and starts to stuff some of them in her bag. Mary then hears Lilia come back with Coach Christie as her distraction plan didn't work out as well as they thought it would. And so Kat is like, no, I'm not done counting Ashlyn's votes yet. And so they quickly have to stuff the ballots back into the box and they decide to hide in the office. The phone in the coach's office starts to go off, and Coach Christie is about to walk back to answer it when all of a sudden Lilia faints. And so Coach Christie takes Lilia to the nurse's office, and Mary and Kat run out of the office. And Mary's like, she's like, aren't you going to double check the ballots, that you counted correctly? And Kat's like, no, like I took enough of Rennie's votes. We should be fine. And that is that. So now it is the day of the homecoming game, and Lilia reveals that the Jar Island football team won 38-3. 38-3. Okay, I don't know much about sports. I don't know much about football, but that is an embarrassing loss for the other team. Like 38-3? Like how bad was this team? Okay. But anyways, everyone is celebrating. And pretty much Rennie and Lilia are now driving back from the game, and Rennie wants to celebrate their win. So they call Ashlyn, and Ashlyn's like, come over to my house. Like, I have a new sauna. Because rich people. So now we're at Ashlyn's house with the girls, Reeve, Alex, and PJ. And they start talking about the game, and Rennie brings up how many scouts were there and approached Reeve, and they start talking about where he's going to go to school after they graduate. And Lilia says, "It's nice that these schools are willing to overlook your grades. I mean, if it wasn't for football, who knows where you'd get in, right?" Reeve then responds with an Asian joke, which I will not repeat here. And then pretty much they stay for a while, and then Lilia realizes that she has to meet with Kat and Mary. So she pretends to be tired, and Alex notices, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll take you home since Rennie wants to stay there with Reeve." So now Lilia is at home, and Kat and Mary arrive, and pretty much Kat shows Lilia and Mary the liquid ecstasy and tells Lilia, she's like, "You only need to add a couple drops to Reeve's drink. It'll take about 15 minutes to kick in, and then Reeve will be riding pink elephants for the next 8 hours." Kat tells Mary that once Reeve starts acting weird, she needs to go get a teacher and Reeve will get kicked out. So the plan with Reeve is established, and then Lilia decides that now is the time to come clean about the Alex thing. And she tells the girls that pretty much everything with Alex and her sister was a big misunderstanding. And she's like, "I kind of feel bad about it." And then Kat's like, "Well, we can't really dwell on the past. Also, it is now time for Mary and I to get our revenge." So Kat hands Lilia the liquid ecstasy, and the girls agree that homecoming will be their grand finale, and that's it. That is it for the revenge. And so Mary and Kat leave Lilia's house, but Kat lingers for a second, and she tells Lilia, she's like, "Just be really quick when putting it into his drink. Like, don't make a big deal about it. Just hand it to him and then go and dance." And Lilia's like, "Okay, like, got it." And then she turns around and sees that her little sister is standing behind her, and Kat has booked it out of there. She's gone. And Nadia is like, "What was Kat DeBrasio doing here?" And Lilia has to now make an excuse for it. And she's like to Nadia, she's like, "Kat was hooking up with Alex. And then I guess she heard this rumor about you and Alex having a sleepover one night." And pretty much Lilia tells her sister that she was setting Kat straight. And Nadia is like, what should I do about this?" And Lilia's like to Nadia, she's like, "You need to steer clear of Kat. Don't talk to her. Don't look at her. Like, I can protect you no matter what, but like, don't get in Kat's way." And so the girls hug, Nadia heads back upstairs, and then Lilia goes to bed and says, "Tomorrow's a big day." And it is the day of the homecoming dance, and Mary is going through her piles of dresses at home, and she's trying to find a dress to wear for homecoming. And at the bottom of her pile, she finds a dress that she doesn't remember buying. It's one shoulder long and floaty and shell pink, and it has layers and layers of chiffon. So Mary assumes that it was her Aunt Bet that bought it for her as a surprise. So Mary gets ready for the dance, and she says, "I walk slowly over to the mirror and have a look. I almost don't recognize myself. It's so nice. More than nice. Perfect. Exactly how I want to look when Reeve meets his downfall tonight." So then Mary has a flashback to her 12th birthday. She decided to invite her entire class to Dart Island for her birthday and have this big carnival themed party. And so for this party, Mary literally goes all out. She says, "Even though everyone hated me now, if I threw a great party, it could change their minds about me." But it turns out nobody shows up to her party. And all of a sudden, Reeve's mom drives to Mary's house, and Reeve attends Mary's birthday party, even though he acts like he doesn't want to be there. And he hands Mary a small white box tied with a pink ribbon. "He bought me a necklace, an enamel daisy with a yellow center and white pearls. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I almost couldn't get it on because my hands were shaking so bad. Mom had to help me with the clasp." He looked nervous. "Is it okay?" "I love it," I told him. "We are back to Mary getting ready for homecoming, and she says, "Despite everything that happened after, he was good to me that day. On that day, I needed him the most. Reeve was my friend. The necklace is shiny, not a bit of tarnish, even after all these years. As sad as it was, wearing it again makes me happy. As happy as I was when Reeve gave it to me on my 12th birthday. Once upon a time." We are at Lilia's house, and she and Rennie are getting ready for the homecoming dance. And Nadia comes in and asks Lilia to help her with her makeup, and Lilia tells her to put on lip gloss instead of lipstick. And Rennie is wearing her sparkly silver sequin dress, and Lilia is wearing a black dress with pale pink pumps. So when Rennie and Lilia are done, they head downstairs, and it turns out that Lilia and Nadia's dad had sent both of them corsages for the dance. When Lilia is distracted by this, Nadia tries to open Lilia's bag, but Lilia catches her, starts to freak out. She's like, "No, you are not allowed to wear any lipstick. Like, no, I said lip gloss only." And everyone is staring at Lilia like, "Okay, like, girl, like, calm down. Like, we get." Lilia is actually freaking out about this because she has the bottle of ecstasy in her clutch. Lilia and Rennie go over to Ashlyn's house to meet the guys and ride in the limo with them to homecoming. Reeve ends up getting Rennie a corsage, and the group of friends take pictures with each other, and then Rennie screams that all of the couple should take pictures together. And Lilia and Alex are the only two that didn't bring dates, and so they're just awkwardly standing there like, we did not come with each other, but their parents forced them to take pictures with each other. So we are now back in Kat's point of view, and Kat is at the dance standing off at the side watching Lilia, and she says, "Lilia ladles punch into 2 cups over by the drink station. She reaches into her black clutch, touches up her lipstick, and oh so casually tips the vial into one of the cups. It's so smooth and fast that if I hadn't been watching her like a hawk, I wouldn't have seen it." Lilia then walks over to the table where Reeve is and pretends to look for Rennie, and this is how their conversation goes. "Where's your girl?" she asks Reeve, who's sitting alone. "She asked me to get her some punch." Reeve looks taken aback. "Rennie is not my girl." "Well, that's not what she thinks. You really shouldn't lead people on like that." "You're one to talk." I can tell Reeve's checking Lilia out by the way he keeps looking away and then quickly looking back. "Rennie's my bro. That's all." So Kat is watching their conversation and she is like, "Hurry the fuck up. Like, we need to get this done. We are on a schedule. Like, just hand him the drink." And so then Kat sees Mary enter the dance, and so does Lilia. And Lilia then finally hands Reeve the drink, and she's like, "Good luck getting homecoming king." And Reeve is like, surprised, and he takes a cup and downs it in one swallow. And then he says to Lilia, "Good luck as well, because remember, Lilia is also a nominee for Homecoming Queen." So after this, Kat walks into the bathroom and runs into Rennie, and their conversation goes like this. "Oh wow," she says. "I can't believe you came. Alone." "Well, it's our senior year," I say. "That's it. Nothing more." She gives me a weird look before walking out. I guess because she was expecting another fight. One of my bitchy comebacks, perhaps? Don't worry, Rennie. It's coming. The bitch slap to end all bitch slaps. So Kat goes back to the dance and pours herself some punch when Alex walks up to her. Alex brings up that they hadn't talked to each other since like school started, and Kat's like trying to be nice and making small talk, and Alex suddenly confesses, "I had a lot of fun with you this summer and that night on the boat, but I get it. You weren't into it. Probably wasn't meant to be anyway, right?" Kat is just looking at him and she's just like, "Right, yeah." Mind you, Kat still has mixed feelings about Alex. Like, her feelings for him haven't gone away yet. Alex leaves, and then Mary walks over to Kat, and Mary is just staring at the food on the table, and Kat is like, "Girl, like, have a Dorito. or a cupcake, like something to eat, you'll be fine. But like Mary is absolutely too nervous to do anything because this is the Reeve revenge plot. So Mary mentions to Kat that she's going to miss the midnight meetings that the girls have because remember, Mary is a loner. The only people who have made an effort to be her friends are Kat and Lilia. And Kat is like unsure of how to respond to this because like Kat and Lilia's relationship with each other like is still kind of complicated and Kat doesn't want to promise that they'll still be friends, so Kat just decides to drag Mary to the center of the gym. Says, I lead her to the center of the gym, right on the periphery of the crowd that has gathered around Reeve. Everyone's clapping and giving him the floor. He's flushed and sweating through his shirt. He's unbuttoned the top buttons and loosened his tie. I start to laugh. I laugh even harder when I see Runny trying to get close to him, dancing sexy, but it doesn't work because Reeve's moves are too wild and jerky. Once he almost punches her in the face. So the E is starting to take effect on Reeve, and the other students like don't really suspect a thing. And pretty much Reeve is just making a fool of himself. And Kat tells Mary, she's like, now's your chance to tell a teacher and get him kicked out. And before Mary has a chance to do so, Coach Christie announces that it is time to announce homecoming king and queen. So the nominees go up on stage. So obviously, Reeve is announced as homecoming king, and Kat says, everyone screams and claps and stomps their feet like this is some big surprise. Coach Christie puts the crown on his head and he's hamming it up, dancing around and moving his hands as if he's holding glow sticks at a rave. He hugs Coach Christie with so much force that he lifts her into the air. She disentangles herself from him, smoothing down her dress and looking somewhat freaked. Next is Homecoming Queen. And it is announced that the Homecoming Queen is none other than Lilia. Kat is like, oh no. So when Mary and Kat were tampering with the ballots, Kat made sure that Ashlyn had enough votes, but she didn't account for how many people voted for Lilia. And Kat's like, okay, like this plan can still work because Runny still didn't win Homecoming Queen. On stage, Runny's mouth is hanging open. She's not even mad, she's just confused. Like there must be some mistake. And poor Lilia is looking out into the crowd like a dazed baby deer as Coach Christie puts a tiara on her head. So, after Lilia is crowned on stage in front of everyone, Reeve sprints over to Lilia, grabs her, and practically just starts like spinning her and like throwing her in the air. And Kat is watching all of this and is like, shit. So we are now in Lilia's point of view, and she is like, it wasn't supposed to be me. This isn't the way it was supposed to go down. Ashlyn is clapping. She doesn't look disappointed, probably because she never ever thought she'd actually win. Rennie standing next to her with this empty look on her face, this sad, empty look. Nadia rushes up to the edge of the stage, and she jumps up and down, cheering for me and screaming my name. I reach up and touch the tiara on my head with a shaky hand. So, Reeve is picking her up, tossing her around. Everyone leaves the stage except for Reeve and Lilia. And Reeve pulls Lilia close to him, and he tells her that he voted for her. And Lilia's kind of like, she just doesn't say anything. She's so confused as to what is going on. And Reeve asks Lilia, she's like, why are you being so mean to me? And he starts commenting about like how soft her hair is. And remember, like this guy is on a whole lot of ecstasy right now. And so Reeve spins Lilia. So Lilia is now facing the crowd and everyone is staring at them. And then Reeve starts to spin her around some more, and Lilia spots Mary in the crowd. Reeve starts to tell Lilia that his heart is beating really fast and his breathing is becoming more labored. And so Reeve starts to touch like Lilia blindly, and he asks her what she and Alex are. And Lilia responds, she's like, we are just friends. I expect him to say something cruel, the way he usually does when it comes to me and Alex. But it's different this time. This time, he lifts my chin, fingers trembling, and he kisses me. His mouth is open and wet and warm. I try to push him away, but his hand is on the back of my neck, pressing me toward him. All I can think about is Rennie. She's going to kill me. Lilia is like, I can't let this happen to me. So she pushes Reeve off of her and he staggers back. And, she says, Reeve shakes his head as if he's trying to get a hold of himself. He starts walking toward me again, but his arms and legs don't seem to be listening to his brain. Oh no, he moans. He turns and gazes into the crowd, as if he's looking for somebody, and inches his way to the edge of the stage. Sorry, he says, shielding his eye from the spotlight. I'm sorry, Alex. So, Reeve continues to look out into the crowd, and then his whole body starts to tense up. The color drains from his face, and he whispers something. Big Easy. Now, we've switched to Mary's point of view, and she says, Big Easy, Big Easy, Big Easy. It doesn't matter how pretty I look tonight. You can put lipstick on a pig, but it'll still be a pig. I'm Big Easy. I'll be her forever. So Mary is in her homecoming dress and she says it's starting to feel different, like soaking wet jeans and a dirty gravel-covered shirt. And suddenly she feels like she is back in the same body the day Reeve pushed her on the dock. And she says, Suddenly, everything electrical in the gymnasium rushes toward me, as if a match were set against hundreds of little rivers of gasoline. If you touched me, I would burn you alive. The hum of sizzling currents drowns out the whispers. The lights overhead, the extension cords running to the DJ booth, the heartbeats of people standing around me. It all comes to me. I'm magnetic. With trembling hands, I push my hair out of my face. Each strand is a live wire. Reeve is still staring at Mary in disbelief, and Mary shuts her eyes and says, There's nothing but burning white inside me. It has nowhere to go but out. When I open my eyes, there is the most terrible spark. All of the lights in the gym pop at the same time. They explode. The entire place is short-circuiting. It is chaos. And Lilia hears Alex screaming her name, trying to get to her. And Lilia is still on stage, and she's about to leave the stage when she remembers that Reeve is also still there. And he is standing at the edge of the stage, and his whole body is shaking. So Lilia runs back to him, to grab him and get him off the stage, and Reeve doesn't respond. He just jerks away from her. And Lilia then realizes that Reeve is having a seizure, and he starts shaking harder and harder, and Lilia isn't strong enough to hold him. Stop, I scream, falling to my knees. Reeve plunges off the stage and onto the floor in a twisted heap. His body is in a pile on the ground, his leg bent gruesomely beneath him. He's not moving at all, not even blinking. Someone screams louder than any other voice, any other sound. So loud, it's the only thing I hear. Now we are back in Kat's point of view, and she says, At first I can't even tell what it is. The noise. It's so loud and shrill I have to cover my ears. Even then I can still hear it. So loud, it's permanently trapped in my ears. Then I realize it's Mary. Our quiet, shy Mary is screaming so hard that it hurts to hear it. I spin in a circle trying to find her, but it's too dark. There are so many people. So it is pandemonium in the gym right now. Kat is about to leave the gym when she sees Lilia kneeling at the edge of the stage, screaming for someone to call 911. Kat steps outside and she realizes that she is bleeding because of the glass exploding from the light bulbs, and she notices that a lot of the other students have also been hurt and it's not just Reeve. Kat tries to search for Mary, but she can't seem to find her, but then Kat sees the EMTs enter the school, and a few minutes later they bring Reeve out on a stretcher, and of course, like everyone is hysterical, especially Rennie. Rennie pushes her way past everybody. She's completely hysterical. She tries to climb into the ambulance with him, but the EMTs won't let her. She drops to the sidewalk in a heap, crying. Reeve fell so hard. And so Kat then sees Lilia in the crowd with Alex, and Lilia then sees Rennie crying on the ground and goes to her, and they both start crying, and Alex is on the phone with someone. Kat says, the ambulance takes off, sirens blaring again. Some people are huddled around in groups, but the football players are already mobilizing. They jump into their cars and lead the caravan out of a parking lot. A limo speeds into the loop. Alex quickly talks to the driver, who's got his head out the window. Alex motions to the girls and they run over. Ashton's there too now, holding out Nadia's hand. They climb inside and the limo peels out. So Kat heads back toward the school and she sees Mary stumbling out. Kat starts screaming Mary's name, but she doesn't hear her. So we are now back in Mary's point of view. Everything is spinning for her. She says, there are too many people. There's too much noise. It's all static. I'm walking, moving without purpose or direction, just following the surge of the crowd. I feel like I'm in a trance. I have to stop and steady myself against a building. So Kat stands in front of Mary, and suddenly Mary snaps out of it. Kat asks Mary, she's like, are you okay? And Mary just starts to shake. You can only chalk up things to coincidence so many times before you have to face the truth. It wasn't the wind that day that made the locker slam shut. It wasn't a misstep that made Rennie almost fall off the pyramid. And tonight, the lights popping, the surge of electricity, it was me. So Kat is trying to convince Mary to leave. She's like, we gotta go. And Mary is trying to convince Kat that she's the one that caused everyone to be hurt. And Kat is like, girl, no, like that was a power surge. Let's get out of here. We need to lay low. We need to talk to Lilia. And Mary says, I never wanted to hurt him. As soon as the words come, so do my tears. I cry like my heart is breaking, because it is. Is he dead? I ask, my voice breaking. Is he? When Kat doesn't answer, I fall to my knees, put my head in my hands. Reeve might die tonight, and it makes me want to die too. Lilia is at the hospital, and pretty much everyone that was at homecoming is there, and she says, I'm on a couch sandwiched between Rennie and Alex. Rennie's head is on Ash's shoulder, and she's finally stopped crying. I want to cry, but I can't. I don't have the right. I am responsible for this. I'm the one who put that ecstasy in his drink. When Reeve's parents got here, I couldn't even look at them. So Alex tries to comfort Lilia, telling her that like everything is going to be fine, and she says it's not comforting because Alex can't know that. Nobody can know that. They say he's in stable condition, but they're running tests on his brain and heart to find out what caused the seizure. He definitely broke his leg. They don't know the fall caused permanent damage to his spine. Then at the hospital, Rennie asks Lilia what Reeve said to her on stage, and Lilia pretends like she's clueless. She's like, when on stage? And Rennie asks her again. She's like, what did he say to you before he kissed you? And Lilia says, like, she was like, he was talking nonsense. Like, he was not acting, like, in his right mind. And Rennie then accuses Lilia of kissing Reeve back. And Lilia tells Rennie, she's like, Reeve practically attacked me. Because technically Reeve did, because that kiss was not consensual at all. Then she says, Rennie nods. He definitely didn't seem like he was in his right mind. She chews on her fingernail. But you know how I feel about him. And I swear, Rennie, I didn't kiss him back. I don't know what else you want me to say. Rennie then gets up and walks away, and Lilia is thinking about Kat and Mary, and she says, what on earth are we going to do now? Kat and Mary are on the dock near Kat's boat, and both of them are quiet. Um, Lilia manages to slip away from the hospital to join them, and Lilia updates them and says that Reeve is in the ICU, and they all start wondering, like, how did everything go wrong? How did everything get so messed up? And Kat's like, it's my fault, like Lilia, that you won prom queen. And Lilia, she girly starts spiraling because she is literally in the center of everything. And she says, I gave the drugs to Reeve. I'm the one who took homecoming away from Rennie. I'm at the center of everything. And Kat is like reassuring Lilia that no one will suspect her. And Lilia is still freaking out. And she's like, I don't even know what to think right now. Like, Reeve might be freaking paralyzed, you guys. And Kat's like, okay, that is highly unlikely. And Mary just whimpers. Like, Mary has been through it as well. And Mary finally speaks. And I'm just going to read the last sentences of this book to you guys. This is all my fault, Mary says. Lilia sighs and shakes her head again, wiping her face. She says, it wasn't your fault. Oh, Mary's shivering, curled up in a ball. It was, she says, looking up at me. I know it was. I fish my lighter out of my purse and light it up. Inhaling deeply, I say, it was all of us. I take another drag. I let the smoke seep through my body. I just hope we get away with it. So, that is the end of book one. I hope you guys were entertained. If you made it this far to the video, if you made it to the end, I will be making a joint video for books 2 and 3. So that is Fire with Fire and Ashes to Ashes. I think this video will be the longest because I had to set up a lot of like exposition and context surrounding this book. The next 2 books are much faster and quicker paced from what I can remember. More stuff happens. We'll find out what happens with the girls. We'll find out what happens with Reeve, with Rennie, how they navigate through everything. Again, thank you for watching this video if you got this far. My socials and story graph are linked down below, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.